Welcome everyone to the Voice of the Terminus show. I'm Yanilla and I'm joined by a huge bunch of people here today. So we'll go through it. We have Lex obviously with us. Say hello, Lex.
Hello.
And we got Josh.
Hey guys.
And in the background we have our wonderful moderator Shy.
Hello.
Then we have Basgrim.
Hello, my name is Basgrim. Welcome back to the Baz Flash. Oh wait, wrong show.
And we have Minus with us.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
And then we have the wonderful Puppet Master Nathan.
Hello, everybody.
And then we are joined by Plate.
Hey guys, how's it going?
And then we have the ever so present Booch.
Howdy, folks.
And the Pantheon mathematician, Evoras.
Good afternoon, folks.
And obviously, we're joined by two wonderful people from the team of VR. We have Ben Mikhail Dean.
Hey guys, thanks for having us.
And Chris Jopper Perkins.
Hey everybody, glad to be here.
So today's gathering is going to be looking back at the past year and having fun while we do that. Chit-chatting and all kinds of good things are going to be flowing. VR have kindly been nice enough to allow us to take questions from chat, so make sure that you tag Cheyenne with your questions, and
That would be Frogzor in chat.
Or Frogzor, exactly. That would be Frogzor in chat. And she'll gather them, and towards the end we'll do a quick round of asking as many questions as possible to VR and see how much we can get answered. But before we kick this off, we do have an announcement to make. As you guys all know, on the cryptic tweet we put out there, this will be our final show for now. Real life has basically sprung some major changes that basically will not allow us to carry on with the show for now, so we're going to be taking a longer break. We've had, it's been a wonderful ride without ups and downs. It's been, almost a good 5 years. We were creeping up onto the 5-year mark, but we just couldn't quite make it. But we want to just say thanks to everybody out there who's been, following us, and you guys here as well, VR, and you guys from the community. You've been there from the start. We've had you guys on more than once, and it's been wonderful. So just so everybody knows, we're gonna have to take a break, but we will be around still. The VoT Guild's still there. We're gonna be putting out tweets and retweeting all the stuff that everybody here is doing and what VR are doing. We'll show up onto the streams obviously as well, but we can't devote the time anymore to be putting out the show at this time. So with that out of the way, Baz, do you want to bring us in to the year 2020?
Yeah, definitely. I was going to say, this is, for the last show for the foreseeable future, this is quite the way to go out with a bang, because we've done a couple of these end-of-year shows before. We didn't do one last year, but we if I remember correctly, we did it for the 2 years before that, and I think I've told you before, like, this is my favorite type of show to do. It's so fun to just kind of like look back at the year and also look ahead to what we have going on next year.
Thanks.
So we'll just kind of go through it month by month here. This is obviously not a comprehensive list of everything that happened this year. I guess just kind of for the sake of time, because I know there's a lot of us here. We tend to talk a lot. We're just kind of going to hit the high points of each month. So let's just get right into it with January. You see, you already put it up on the screen there. The merch store was overhauled for official Pantheon merch. I know none of us are on camera. Is anybody actually wearing merch right now? Just curious.
I'm not wearing anything.
I'm not wearing it, but I love my Rogue shirt.
you know, you don't put those kind of things on. You know, you have them in plastic wrap and savoured. You know, you put them in a frame, framed in a wall. Exactly.
All I'm wearing is a dog.
Pantheon mug count.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I'm not actually wearing the mug, but I am using it.
So basically, you know, you guys had you had a different provider to start off with, and then you switched over to Redbubble. That's correct, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this stuff is this merch is much nicer than what was before, and this is it's still hard to believe that like this was this year. This has been such a long year, but yeah, this was like one of the first things that happened in 2020.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say we were struggling with it for a while too, because there were so many options and we wanted to get it out, and just on the back end, it sounds like a simple thing, but it's really not. Like we had to go through a lot of paperwork and make sure that whoever our partner was matching certain criteria in terms of finances and taxes and all of that stuff. So it was actually a really complicated process. But the team, we had Mike Butler working on it, and Dave Schlau put together the graphics for the stuff. It took a while, but I think it was worth it. We came up with some pretty cool stuff. So
yeah, quality.
Now, Ben, I heard on Reddit that it only takes about 10 minutes. So just saying.
Oh, you would think so. If you're a private seller, sure. When you're an incorporated entity, it's a little bit different.
So we'll obviously you're going to be adding more and more as we go. You know, so. Is there anything you guys can already say? You know, when can people? You know, is there any timeline when to expect additions to the store?
It's actually something that we haven't gone into great detail about yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't tell you.
Okay.
How's that for a letdown?
Hey, we've got to try, you know. We've got to try and squeeze as much as we possibly can.
It's just January, you know. We're gonna have a lot more chances to extract some.
Yeah. See, Kilson's not here. We can do this stuff now.
See, Pantheon Plus. You're in the channel anyway. But the cloth map, that was actually, we were surprised. It's not available in the store, but we were surprised at how popular that really became. It was like it was overnight. You know, like we had it in some of our early pledges, and it wasn't mentioned. And then it came up on the forums, and then it became this big, huge thing. So we're actually going to put quite a bit of attention into that. That should be pretty cool.
You know,
it won't be on this store though. It's going to be a separate thing.
Yeah. Another great thing to do as well. Is to get a T-shirt out there that says "Finish for Brad and Molad," or how we're doing in Molad. I think that would be a good one as well.
I like that idea. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
So Baz, should we?
Yeah, let's move right along. February. Big thing that month was the making of Fairthale stream with Co-Carnage, and that was. The stream, yeah, you got it right up there. That's where we saw
That was that long ago.
Yeah.
So,
the Isle of Infinite Storm, and we really got a good taste of the Sleepless raid for the first time.
Yeah, but that's the one I basically brought up because that was the showcase that just I think lit everything up. It basically blew everybody's mind. So I brought this up and put in a few videos. People enjoy while we talk about what we saw here, because towards the end of that stream, this just stood out. Nobody was expecting it, and like Coach said when he looked up and saw that planet eye looking thing, going, I want to know more about that, and Joppa said, well, there's a lot to tell about that, but we're not going to do it now. It's just like mind blowing to see this zone, how it came together and what it looks like.
We would tell it all tonight, but I think we're pressed for time, so.
That's all
time.
Yeah, that's all we got time for, folks.
I'm just kidding. All right, backed into a corner now. I did. That's awesome.
All right, guys, check off the almost out of time from Ben bingo box. Everybody, go ahead and put that up.
Oh, what have I gotten ourselves into?
I have a question for you guys.
Stream, by the way.
When I think about this stream, one of the things that I hope people can appreciate is the timing of it. And in retrospect, we recently kind of pulled back the curtain and talked a good deal about the refactoring that we've had to do, and all the steps that we've had to take to get the game into a place where it's poised, for launch. And there's a lot of reasons that we did what we did with Oldwood and with Sleepless. And one of them is because we want to make sure people understand where this game's going. And so it's encouraging to us to hear, man, the zone looked amazing. It was mind-blowing, so awesome, because that's what you can expect. This is a kind of a steady reference to come back to and say, okay, when I'm seeing Greybox, I'm understanding that, I really am watching a game still very much in development. And so this is more of the final stage of what these processes ultimately lead to. So it's been really helpful in that sense, just to keep being able to point people back to that and say, don't get so hung up on in development visuals that you forget, where these things are ultimately headed.
Yeah, and this zone that we're seeing on screen now too, it's come even further since then too. So
can I ask, was this done with Houdini as well, or did that come later?
Oh, this was not done with Houdini. These, and the interesting thing about these, if you look, these are not full-scale terrain zones. And so what Houdini is allowing us to do specifically with the full-scale terrain zones, things like Throne Fast, AVP, those places, is where the Houdini pipeline is coming into effect. The Sleepless zone is interesting because it is basically like a little, it looks like a terrain, but it's actually not. It's an object that's very much looks like one, but we treat that a little bit differently. And here, before too long, we're going to start seeing the fruits of Houdini in actual full-scale, terrain-based zones. It's really exciting.
A bean! A small one! Hey!
Can I ask you guys, when you showed this video, can you take us back a little bit, if you can remember what it was like? I mean, this was a big deal. The Fairthale and then this. What was the team's feeling in watching this get out there and sort of the build up to it?
I can tell you one thing just watching this on the screen now, and it's going to be a little bit delayed for me because I just pulled up the channel. But what we just saw was Ko getting summoned to Sleepless. Now, when we were doing this, Sleepless wasn't done, and we didn't really want to show it in great detail. We thought maybe if we can stay back a little bit, then it'll be just kind of a bit of a flash of it. But of course, we knew the risks. We knew that he was going to summon someone, and of course, it had to be Ko. So there, all of a sudden, Sleepless was right front and center. It's like, well, there he is. But
that was great, though. I mean, that was a cool moment, and especially seeing him so up close. Like, it's such a badass looking mob that was cool. And then also the other thing too that I don't think we should overlook that's being shown on screen right now is that it also showed Ko in the midst of the climate system in the wind shear.
Yeah.
That was a big deal for sure. Being able to actually show a real life climate for the first time with its effects, and not just explaining and describing, but being able to put someone in it.
So since then, has the climate change undergone a lot of rework from the stream, or are you guys kind of keeping the same mechanics and visuals and all that integrated?
Well, so there's 6 different climates, and they're each going to have their own look, their own kind of look and feel. So for wind shear, this is an interesting one because it's wind shear can exist in lots of different ways. If you were just on the top of a high cliff at high altitude, you would not expect this kind of like deep, dark, stormy look. And so this particular visual here that we're seeing is a wind shear climate, but it's also, you know, kind of interwoven with the sleepless visual theme, which is the fact that he commands this stuff and basically himself can, you know, kind of materialize into a storm. So it's much more malevolent. It's much more of an actual storm environment, whereas wind shear more kind of universally will have a less, you know, ominous, stormy kind of look to it. But you will find that's the key, though, is you're going to find atmospheres that, or I'm sorry, climates that exist out in the world naturally occurring. You know, they will have a consistent look and feel to them, but then you're also going to find them embedded in other, you know, events and different things where Sleepless Storm is a great example where, you know, you would find something like that in the midst of something that looks, you know, unique. Like the climate's almost a subcomponent of it. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so we brought up the basically what we would call a time lapse as well. It's running through those videos, showing that off as well, what it looks like, and you know, it's great to see it all come together, piece by piece. You see how much passion and love goes into the development of it.
Yeah, and this is what I like looking back at these end of year shows, is because, and I think you made a really good point, Ben, is that, you know, we've been seeing a lot of gray boxing lately, which is fine, but it's also good to, you know, be reminded that, you know, there are still zones like this that just look amazing.
And that exist, you know, they are there, you know, it's not something that's disappeared, which is also very important to point out, because, you know, the refactoring came at a later point where, you know, we've already seen Black Rose Keep in some level of detail. We saw Haunier's Cave in levels of detail. We saw Avendir's Pass, which obviously got a major revamp, but, you know, most of the stuff that was there still exists, so it's not, you know, it's not gone away.
Yeah, and this is it's really nice, like Joppa said, as a reference, right? We can look at these and then use our imagination. When you see the gray box, you can kind of see that's the level that we can expect, right? So you can kind of use your imagination when you're looking at the gray box and kind of say, I can kind of figure about how cool this is going to look, and I think that's fun. That's a fun thing that we only got this one period of time that we can do, right? Use our imagination and what we think it'll look like, and that's fun too. And I think we all need to kind of appreciate that we're in the moment too, not just always look for the future, right?
Yeah, there's part of me that thinks, you know, like years down the road, you know, when we're all like playing together, I think, at least for me, there'll be a part of me that, you know, reminisces and kind of misses the good old days, so to speak, of development. Like it can feel agonizing right now, but I think secretly deep down, we'll all kind of miss this.
Hey, who knows? You know, who knows? You know, maybe VR, you know, expansions come out, and that's where we come back in to help with the development of those expansions.
That brings a great idea. We should have an expansion that's gray box. We'll call it the gray box expansion. All of us.
That's a good April Fool's Day.
Yeah, it didn't EQ did that for an April Fool's Day.
Oh, yeah?
Year. They said that they had this like major like graphics engine overhaul, and you log in and all the characters were just stick figures.
I remember that.
Yeah, that's what they did. They did something like that as well with their Landmark. They put the 8-bit graphics onto the game, and then all of a sudden you log in and everything's 8-bit.
It totally worked with my grandmother. She was playing EQ at the time. She logged in and she's like, I think it's a bug. Like
That was awesome.
Brilliant.
That would be pretty cool, though.
At the end of the day, it's just
My game
gray boxing is a part of game development. You go to any studio, any project, and it's how the games are created. The main difference is when you're developing the game much more openly, as we are, then you can only move as fast as your team is able to move in terms of the people working on the project and the amount of time that these things take, which is why tech is so important, which is why things like, you know, being able to incorporate Houdini into our pipeline is just a megalithic cosmic improvement in terms of like productivity, speed, and being able to do so much of the groundwork and legwork of this stuff. But it's very normal. And I think, we've said it many times before, we'll continue to say it all the way to the end. If the game is not fun, if it's not enjoyable, if you can't get it, when it's just in a gray box, kind of pre-bells and whistles state, yeah, it has an effect on immersion. Yeah, it has, it's not like it's, completely an agnostic thing, but it is very important that the fundamentals of the game, the main, kind of guiding principles behind the systems and the design are all accessible and coherent. And ideally, the goal is that they're fun even before those bells and whistles come in. And that's why a lot of the testing we've been doing with the gray boxing has been very helpful, because it allows some of those things underneath the surface that maybe wouldn't have been as easily noticeable if the game, every part of the game right now looked like Old Wood and Sleepless in this gorgeous, kind of full setting. It might be a little harder to see, some of the rough edges or the issues, whereas now it's a little bit easier, and it's giving us some really, really good clarity in really tracking some of these things down, to where when we do, get to the point where the game from top to bottom is visually stunning, then we've got this really, really solid, well-tested, lots of clarity into the foundations of the game. So this is game development. All of you are on the journey with us, as we do this very openly. And we're moving at a really good clip, especially now with the tools that we have in place. So like I said, enjoy this time while you can. I'm glad to hear some of you are already thinking about waxing nostalgic about it, because it really is a fastly approaching close to this season as soon as we get a little bit more tech kind of hooked up and rolling. So enjoy it while you can.
Well, Jopper, we don't have to enjoy it while we can. Your fellow colleague, your fellow colleague Neff just put it out there. You bring out the Pantheon Development Edition, all grey box, the entire thing.
Yeah. That was like hotcakes.
Yeah, Ben laughs nervously.
So, real quick to comment on what Joppa was talking about, and I hope I'm not talking out of turn here, so this is where Minus gets in trouble, but we showed off that little bit of footage. That's why I'm okay saying this. And you'll notice in the footage that we put out, like that, the grass we forgot to turn on at one point. Like, what you guys are saying is so true, and I wish that we could maybe speak a little more openly about it. I'm definitely tiptoeing right now, but what you brought up there, Joppa, was the fun, right? Fun's first, and I think a lot of people here would say, what we've experienced and been able to help with so far has been so fun that I even forgot to turn on certain graphics because I was just having fun. I was lost in the core components of the game, and I can't stress how important that is for people who don't have that opportunity to help test. The graphics matter to draw you in, but once you're playing, the gameplay matters, and that's what excites me about what we're seeing in Gray Box, is that the gameplay is really fun. Like, I am saying that hand to God, like it's a blast. So, Joppa, a testament to exactly what you were just saying. Like, is the game fun first? Why would you make something that's not fun look pretty, right? So just hats off to you guys for that.
Good to hear.
So Baz, should we move on?
We shall. To March. First major thing I think that month was the character model reveal for the Scar, the Dark Mirror, and the Archive. Do you happen to have a picture of that you can throw up there?
Unfortunately, no.
Awesome stream, though. That was
Bummer.
a good stream.
Yeah, that was a good stream.
Really, it really happened.
So that's
that to keep Lexo quiet.
So that's actually good that you mentioned that, because that is Lex's thing, the Scar. So Lex,
I was gonna say, what are your thoughts, Lex?
Talk about that.
Well, just as a Scar lover, we all know it's been a bit of a roller coaster. Liked how they were, really didn't like the concept art. I feel like some of the concerns were addressed, and what we've got now is something that I'm definitely going to be playing.
There you have it.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Is anybody else planning on playing like an Archai or a Darkmere or something that have like?
I think
Darkmere. Fish sticks here.
Archai for Josh. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had no interest in the Darkmere because the original concept art was very. I used to call it fish elf.
Right.
You know,
that's a good description. Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of fish elf. So, and you guys know my love for elves. So when you showed the Darkmere, and especially as a rogue fan with the passives they have, seeing them fully fleshed out in a sense of what we saw and the changes and the evolution from them just being some variant of an elf into being its own race. The gills were more prevalent, the textures on the skin. I immediately went from a race I would have never considered, which has a great backstory, might I add, but I would have never considered because it was very elf driven. And when I saw that, I literally was like, oh, great. Now I have to figure out if I want to be a halfling or a Darkmere. So great job on that.
Yeah, I want to say, too, that my wife definitely is playing a Darkmere mainly just so she can breathe because she drowns in every MMO. But I would like to play one, too. And I just want to say that if they can be clerics, but I don't see why they couldn't be a paladin as well in the lore. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I see that. I'm with you, Nathan. I'm with you on that.
Because I don't want to be a human, please. I'm like the Darkmere, please.
And for those of you that don't know, Nathan is not. His wife will not let him play a dwarf. I don't know if anyone knows that. He's not allowed.
Yeah, because I would just be a dwarf. I love dwarfs, but my wife doesn't like them. She calls them a little short, fat, ugly people. So I can't. I'm not allowed to be one. So it's human or nothing at this point. Unless I think we got a shot at Darkmere making it in the lore paladin. I think we got a shot.
Yeah, but a Darkmere paladin sounds kind of fishy.
Dad joke. Timestamp it. Dad
Somebody start an online petition for Darkmere paladin, please. We need 10,000 signatures.
I would say that just to interject, I would say that of the people that have I remember when we did that show and we were talking about it, of the races that were showcased, the Darkmere was the one that everyone was the most impressed with from not having seen the character model. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I know that to me that was like, wow, the Darkmere is cool. You knew kind of what the Archive was going to look like. You didn't really know what the Scar was going to look like, but I think the Darkmere was the most impressive to me.
They are. Darkmere are impressive. It's fact.
As a character.
Very lean meat.
Yeah.
Yeah, very exactly.
I posted a link to an article that has a picture of the models in there for people that want to refresh their memory. I'll be honest, actually, I kind of felt the other way around. I was out of those least impressed by the Darkmere and most impressed by the Archai. And maybe that's just because that's the race that I was more interested out of those, but I think it's just such like a badass looking race, and it's a unique concept, and I just think the detailing on like the rock and the elemental that like glows through them. Yeah, very.
It definitely stands out.
Archai had better abs too, didn't he? He was a little more threaded up.
Dude, he's built. Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, I always play a dwarf paladin, but after playing and seeing the Archai in game, I'm really starting to lean towards an Archai monk.
Interesting.
Is it me, or does anyone else think that Archai rogues would suck in PvP?
Please elaborate.
Not any more than a gnome.
Wow, we never talk about gnomes.
They do tend to crumble under pressure, though.
Another one. Wow.
More dad jokes.
Oh,
hey, Josh.
Filled with them tonight.
Are you planning on playing an Archai as well? You said, right, monk as well.
I did Archai monk, yeah.
So since we're talking about who's playing what and everything, and obviously it was the month for the Darkmere, the Scar. in the archive. But what is everybody planning on playing? We'll start with Baz. What's your race? And
can I just interject there? Even though I'm going to be playing an Archive Monk, of the classes that I have played, they all are pretty damn fun to play. So it's going to be a tough choice at the end of the day.
Yeah, I definitely know what you mean. But I've pretty much settled on dwarf. As short and fat and ugly as Nate's wife may think they are. I've just always played a dwarf. Not always, but for a very long time. I've pretty much settled on that as my race. But as far as class goes, they're a little limited. They're a little limited on classes, but all of them do kind of appeal to me in one way or the other. Pretty much narrowed it down to either cleric or paladin, though.
What about you, Plate?
Man, I've been struggling with this ever since since I heard about the game, but I want to say I'm still gonna stay strong and go Dwarf Warrior. But the Scar, I really love the Scar and what they did with them, and I just want to see the variety factor once you can actually get in and create your own character, especially with changing different scales of skins or whatever, horns or whatnot on the race. But I'm really thinking about doing a Scar Dire Lord, and I think that's going to be maybe my ultimate choice, because once I saw Joppa get killed in town, just by running.
He got one-shotted, right?
Yeah, so much for being a wizard.
Oh my god. Let's do that.
You're going to have to change your name to Chainmail.
Yeah.
So what about you, Minus?
Yeah, no.
Well, so this might be news to some people because I've been talking about it with my guild, but it's right now Halfling Rogue is definitely leading the way, but I'm battling some inner demons, and I have a very commanding personality, and it's very hard for me to not be a tank, and I feel really bad how I treat my tanks because I just expect them to be this great tank. So I am definitely Halfling Rogue, but there is this very small part of me that's afraid I won't be able to fight off being a tank. And if I have to be a tank, I'll probably be some warrior. But right now, Halfling Rogue, but I gotta beat these demons.
Be a backseat taunter.
Thankfully, Joppa and Mikhail, you guys have created a rogue that can lead a group. Which I do love. The toolkit definitely lets it lead a group, but there's just something about controlling aggro and I don't know.
What about you, Booch?
I'm Bard all the way, but that's also relies on if Bard makes it. If Bard makes it, and I will go. If Archive is an available race, I will go Archive Bard. If not, I will go Scar Dire Lord.
Oh!
Whoa! Dire Lord for the win, huh? Scar for the win so far.
Oh yeah.
What about you, Evo?
Well, my leaning is towards humans. Unless Joppa decides that one of the other races gets an innate ability to kill gnomes, then that might change my mind.
Notes.
Nate, what about you?
Well, I would love to say I'm going to play a dwarf, but I've been banned from dwarf. And by the way, guys, I'm still working on it, okay? I've read the Hobbit story to her because I thought that might make her like dwarves. We watched the Hobbit movies. That didn't help. I've tried everything. I played one in EverQuest Eredune server. She didn't get used to it. So I'm still working on it. But so far, since we only I got to be a paladin. So we got humans, dwarves. So looks like, unfortunately, I'm gonna be a boring old human. I just hope they got some good beard options. That's all.
Yeah, so we all know that Lex is gonna play a Scar, and
I was gonna say, if you don't know what I'm playing by now, then you don't deserve to be in chat.
Yep, and I'll be playing. I'll be playing a Darkmere Cleroid. I'm still going with that Joppa. It's gonna be a thing.
That's because you're gonna be a huge pain in my.
So, what about 'Are you going to reveal what you plan on playing?
Oh.
Like, whenever this question comes up, it's like asking a parent, like, which child is their favorite. You don't answer that question. I just feel strongly, if you're going to design classes, you have to love them all. You have to find ways to love them all. And so I would say in my past, my favorite class experience in any game to date was a Holy Paladin in World of Warcraft during Wrath of the Lich King. I don't know why. It just was something about the way that whole class and kit worked, especially like in group content, raid content. I just really resonated with it. And that comes from a background of playing Cleric as my main in EverQuest for many, many, many years. And then Monk and Necromancer alongside that. I love healing. I just instantly resonate with healing because it's what I've done for a long time.
Mhm.
But as a healer, it gives you a lot of insight into other classes as well. But I really love them all. It's been really fun to see all of them. We have a lot of classes. To see them all finding that kind of niche role and play style and hooks. The challenge of the archetypes, the 4 kind of archetype roles that we want to have, including crowd control. It's been a really, really fun challenge. So that's my answer. All of them I'm going to play, and all of them I love.
And I know you're not going to be alone there, because we know that Shy's going to have one of each.
Alcoholics over here.
Aren't you, Shy?
Very funny. Maybe. I might have 2 of each.
Exactly. So,
I just want, before we move on, guys, I just want to point out to everybody listening for now and in the future that Jaffa just said one of his favorite MMO experiences ever was playing a paladin. Just want to point that out to everybody.
I'm happy you didn't continue that statement, because then we'd start a whole nother war.
Oh yeah.
I'll have to bring up that I love you all paladins video then.
Every now and then, we just enjoy sitting back, relaxing, and smashing your keyboard with our eyes closed.
So before we carry on, Ben, would you like to reiterate your class and race choice?
Yeah, unlike Chris, I do have a favorite child. No, classically I've always played a dwarf paladin, and I will obviously have one. There's no way that I won't have one. But I just feel like my style as an MMO gamer has changed over the years, so I might do something less assertive, and I might do something in the DPS vein. I'm not really quite sure yet, but I do like monks as well. So as I said, Archai Monk is also an option.
Cool. So Baz, bring us forward.
Well, I do actually have. There was actually one other thing that I think was noteworthy from March, and that's because the 2 people that were involved are here. It's when Minus interviewed Joppa on his show. Was there anything you wanted to mention about that, Minus?
Well, I was a nervous wreck. Joppa, that was the first time I ever had any sort of direct interaction with the dev in public, I guess you'd say, where they'd have to actually be there. It was awesome. And I'm going to give Joppa a huge shout out for this, because I'll tell a little story that people didn't know. I had him set up for about an hour interview, and I had so many questions that I wanted to ask him, and I kind of had it all kind of formulated. I was really, really nervous. I just didn't want to strike out, for the community, I think is what the pressure I put on myself. And it was interesting because, thankfully, Joppa, thank you for this. He's familiar with the show. And one of the things we do at the show is we bring people in from the green room. And I had this big fear, like I have all these questions I want to ask and all this stuff I want to get into. And right before the show goes live, I go, we'll do an hour. And Joppa, being the awesome person he is, goes, hey, if you need to go longer so we can do the green room, like, just go for it, man. Like, if we got to do an hour and a half, if we got to do a little bit more, do it. And it really gave the opportunity for us to bring a lot of people into the green room. And I just, Joppa, to this day, I really appreciate you doing that. And I know the community does. And I had a lot of fun. Hopefully you did, but I'll leave it at that. What are your thoughts on that?
I thought it was great. I feel like, sorry, I'm eating dinner here as we're going, but I feel like, and it's not trail mix. which is somewhat of a rarity. But I feel like it landed at a point where I hadn't done it. I think I can't remember if it was before that or after that with the limited action set.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
So it was after that, yeah. I feel like it had been a while since I'd sat down and talked, for a length of time about the game, answering questions and stuff. And it was fantastic. I mean, the format was great. I thought the questions were really, really good, well-formed. And I think, being able to talk to the community kind of ad hoc was really fun. I tend to enjoy the challenge of thinking on my feet and, really thinking about things in the moment. And I thought the questions were just great across the board. I've always loved talking about the game. It's a passion of mine. Just there's a lot that you gain and a lot that you lose when things are communicated well versus poorly or incompletely. And so it's always fun to be able to talk about the game and keep ratcheting down, what we're doing and why and the goal and the reasons behind it. So I thought it was a great interview. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome.
Great. All right. Well, we've been live for 45 minutes and we've gone through 3 months.
I know.
It's gonna be a 6-hour stream.
I can do the maths, but you won't like it.
Next up, April. In the April dev stream, that was the first time we saw the mastery system revealed and in play.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, that's it. Moving on. No, I'll just go ahead and say I was really intrigued by the mastery system. I think even in just that one stream, I got really excited seeing the potential for all the ways that classes can interact with each other, which is obviously being like a group-based game is really important. And I just love that. I like that extra just level of strategy that it can bring in. I don't think it wasn't super complicated that it felt like it would just be impossible to grasp, but I think there was that it seems like there's just the right amount of level of synergy that you can kind of discover as you go and figure out the ideal way to kind of communicate with each other in the middle of a battle to make sure that you're most effective. And so that stream I remember really exciting me about just the depth that it can add to what would otherwise be a fairly simplistic combat system. I think it really adds that crucial meat to it.
Well, that's what you're absolutely right. The potential that it has, because we've seen it in a raw stage. It's been introduced. Obviously, it's not completely sussed out, and the potential and the possibilities and what this system can bring, and how Jopper explained it and everything, definitely is one of the most exciting things I'm looking forward to seeing in its full flesh, especially when you've got a full group of people that can actually access that and utilize it. So it's definitely going to be one of those things that I'm very looking forward to the most, to see where you guys actually take the mastery system and go further into depth as to what the possibilities are gonna be at the end.
Yeah, for sure. Man, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So what was your guys' mentality when making the system? If we can harken back, what made you guys really, really see the full form to this and the depth it adds and whatnot?
Great question. This ties in a little bit with one of the questions you sent us beforehand about the game tenants, and
don't spoil that.
The notion of tenants is very important. I'll use something probably relatively familiar right now, just as we've had a lot going on in I don't want to say our nation, I'm say in the U.S. over the last year, because I don't know that this is everyone's nation currently. But it's, you look at something like the Constitution, and there's a lot of aspects of the Constitution that come under scrutiny during seasons like this, where certain things really start pressing on nerves and really pushing the borders of what actually does this mean. And you think about the way the Constitution is worded, and if you liken a constitution to a tenet, then it's something that establishes like an overarching philosophy and kind of an immutable, unchanging philosophy, we'll say. Probably not the best word, but it works. But as you can see how things play out, there's all kinds of dispute on what does that actually mean? What does the right to bear arms actually mean? And that's when you start getting into, or what does freedom of speech actually mean? Like, what are all the edge cases and places where that is tested and pushed? And that's the difference between what I've called in the past this high level design versus low level design. And one of the interesting things about 2020 and even some 2019 is that we have for a long time in Pantheon's development, certainly since I've been around, there's been a lot of tenet level talk and discussion, a lot of philosophy based discussion, but there hasn't been as much low level, like, this is how that is actually going to look. And even though that did over time start happening more, there's also a difference between talking about how something's actually going to look and then actually seeing it get ratcheted down into experience. And that's why I think there can be some question of like, well, you guys have always said this, but, is what you're doing in game here, does that actually line up with this tenet? And the answer is yes. Like, the tenets are all still in place. There's been absolutely no change or deviation from the tenets that, are part of the original like star that Pantheon was born out of. But it's the question of we have to go through this very thoughtful, careful, laborious process of considering things out all the way to the end to make sure that, like, okay, we want Pantheon to be a challenging game, but what does that mean? What does that mean on every level? What does that mean at the beginning of the game, the end of the game, all the way through? What does that mean for the various systems and how they incorporate into that? It's anyway, I could say a lot, but that's probably enough of a primer on that. And so for the mastery system, one of the tenets of Pantheon, or in fact, several of Pantheon's tenets, have to do with meaningful character progression, a sense of player power and prestige, and feeling like there is essentially, as often as possible, always something that you can be doing to better and improve and push your character forward. And that thought process manifests in lots of different ways, but obviously it's 2020, 2021, as we look closer to Pantheon's launch, we're looking at this era of games that surrounds Pantheon. What's the launch market look like? What games are out there that exist, and how long have MMOs been in existence? And when you think about when you log in and play, what are the different things that I'm going to be doing? Obviously, I'm going to be adventuring. I'm going to be fighting things. I'm going to be looting things. I'm going to be, in this game, I'm going to be leveling up. I'm going to be improving my abilities. Those are all things we're very familiar with, but the mastery system was born in looking at two specific things. One from both from kind of the quintessential era of gaming that we draw so much inspiration from, which is what we would consider the vanilla EQ and the vanilla WoW periods of those two games, and the way that they did what they did. And that interview I did with Minus, actually, we go into detail on that, like, just what does that mean for Pantheon, to take inspiration from both of those games and both those eras, but then also carve its own path of evolving a lot of those aspects and designs and experiences. And the mastery system draws heavy inspiration from both the alternate advancement system of EverQuest and the talent system from World of Warcraft. as a way to the most fundamental way to condense the thought down is incremental advancement, incremental improvement. And that's something that I personally resonate with deeply. I like the feeling of like macro improvement, macro progression, where I gain a level, or I get an incredible new upgrade to an item, or I get a brand new upgrade to an ability, or a brand new ability type. I mean, those are more macro level upgrades, but incremental advancement is when you're taking something that you already have and you're improving it slightly, and you're improving it slightly over time, or you're expanding all that it can actually do. And we did a hybrid of the talent system and the alternate advancement system to say we want this to be something players can engage with right out of the gate. Being able to start the game with a single mastery point. So right from the beginning, you're able to invest a point into either an ability, which abilities have their own mastery system. And then there's more of a character mastery where you can invest a point into lots of different options, which that aspect of the system isn't online yet. And then all through the game from level 1, you're making decisions about where you invest these points, how you invest them. You're looking for ways to get, more of these mastery points that you can use and spend. And there's just a lot of implication for it. But I would say that's definitely the thought that went into it, is we want to provide, it's a way to provide additional means for players to progress through this incremental improvement and incremental advancement that gives you a sense of ownership over how your abilities develop, how your character develops.
It's more like meaningful, advancement as well. It's not
right.
A lot of these MMOs nowadays they bring in systems because they have no other idea what to do. So they bring in your daily quests that people go in and do at high level to have something to do. So that's where Pantheon stands out with adding meaningful progression and things to do that actually impact your character, impact your development of your character going forward, rather than just putting something in to give us something to do because, development for the expansion or this or that is come to a halt for whatever reason. There's, it's slowed down, this, that and the other. That's the big thing as well. Adding in meaningful stuff that actually keep us invested in the game and give us that sense of, doing something with reason.
Just can I add something to that, just to touch on what Joppa just said? I think what he was touching on sounded almost like creating I would say a more well-rounded character, which adds to the overall development of your tune, which to me makes the game that much more immersive. If you have like he's saying, many facets to the single character you've created, it gives you more personalization. So it's almost like you're actually in that. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. It differentiates each other.
Right.
So it's not all the same. Yeah. I really, really like that, and I think that's awesome. An awesome way to incorporate classes not being the same, but also the progression that you get from it, and the meaningfulness that you get from it, and getting them past the point is awesome.
Thank you, Josh, for trying to be so delicate with the typing.
In there.
So, Baz, let's keep going, dude.
Yeah, let's keep trudging through this. I actually did. There was one other very minor, very quick thing from April that I wanted to mention because I think most people probably overlooked it, and that was that some of the Kickstarter pledges from way back in the day got an invite to help name some of the NPCs in the game, which is just kind of cool that the people that pledged way back then kind of got to redeem, part of their pledge perks. And I was just curious, for either Ben or Joppa, have those names actually been put into the game yet?
Well, so we compiled the list. Surprisingly, there was actually quite a few who hadn't responded yet either. But we still email them occasionally to remind them that they do have that perk. And we've got other perks like that too that we've reached out on since as well. In terms of content, has it been rolled in? That's more of a Chris question, I think.
Yes, the answer is yes. It wasn't even that long ago. Justin brings it up every once in a while because it's largely a task that Justin does himself or oversees directly, and he is actively working on those and has a good bit of them in already.
Cool.
Awesome. All right, let's move on to May.
Hold on, Baz. I have to bring something. I'm going to be that guy to slow us down. So, Mikhail, Ben, in April, something else really important happened. Two things actually involves both Mikhail and Joppa. Mikhail, first of all, you ended up on Team Minus in the Pantheon Dungeon Group Draft, and I imagine that feels really good because we did have the best group. And Joppa, you went third round. That blew my mind that you went third round. Do you guys have any comments about that? Because that was a pretty big deal.
I mean, I'm still putting some of that to rest. I'm still making my own peace.
I can hear the pain in his voice, Minus.
Yeah, that was pretty tough. My son was watching that. We decided to watch that together, and he was like, "Dad, what?" Like every time there was a round go by and I wasn't picked, he was like, "Dad, are you?" And he was looking at me like, "Are you okay? Like, that was kind of fun." But no, I think it's one of those things where, it's kind of like the OP characters that they're not as interesting. And I think when you really break it down, like it probably wouldn't be that great, that fun, to do a dungeon run with me if I'm not, hiding my identity, because I'm just there to spoil stuff. It's not going to be as exciting. So that's how I interpreted that. And obviously tongue in cheek, like I thought that was an amazing idea. And I'm glad I went when I did.
Does anyone remember who was the first pick?
The first pick was Kilson, I think, which blew my mind.
What? He's the one.
He was the Ryan Lee for that draft, I think.
I remember I picked Ronick first, and I had no regrets.
What?
Wow.
You like trains?
Listen, he saved the Minus. You was there. He saved the whole party in an MMO one time. Never forget. It's heroic. It's a heroic effort.
Was the goal to actually succeed in the dungeon, or just to have the most fun? Because it sounds like you're just trying to go, but with these Ronick and Kilson picks, I mean, that good entertainment value for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Baz, be careful because we ended up trading. Baz, you're on my team with Mikhail. We ended up trading Sacred so that we could get Kilson. So we have 2 Rogue, 2 Paladin. We have Brass in there. We had a pretty good group.
I dig it.
That was during Ronick's Bring the Thunder phase, so
yes.
I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, which has obviously ended now as well. So
thank you. Every once in a while, he'll bring that up, and I'll be like, "Oh man."
All right. May was the Perception stream, or is that where they explained the storylines? It was actually in a pre-recorded video that took place after the stream, if I remember correctly, because due to technical difficulties couldn't stream it live. But I, for one, am actually really glad that it ended up working out that way, that it was kind of its own standalone video.
Yeah.
And I think it was cool. That was another stream that just really intrigued me, and I was kind of glad that was able to be highlighted on its own, because that is one of the more unique things, one of the more unique systems in Pantheon.
It's not just unique; it's a standout system. It's almost like its own part of the game. Its own organism for the game itself that is just so vividly alive. It's going to add a complete new dynamic to how you engage in an MMO. It's storytelling in its deepest core possible. So, perception, ever since it's been brought up and they've shown it here and there and glances here, even on, the very early stages, That's the system that just stands out and is as stuck so deep into my head. It's one of the most exciting things for this game out there, and the possibilities are endless with what they can do with it. Not just perception on a character level, but on an environmental level, on a item level, you name it. Crafting, you can go anywhere with it.
Yeah, the major thing that stood out for me from that stream was realizing that in an MMO, you can still find ways to force people to slow down and actually think and look around and actually use their brain to put the pieces together, and just that any system that can actually effectively do that has major props in my book, because we've talked about it a ton before about how that's something that kind of plagues MMOs right now, is that it's just the conveyor belt. You just jump on and it's pretty obvious where you're going, and you just got to get there as fast as possible. So
it's interesting you say that though, right? Turn on your head, turn your brain on, because like you said, it's all now theme park and off you go. I expect to see a website completely completely built on Pantheon's perception system, where people gather information, because people don't turn their heads on anymore. They've mislearned how to do that, because
they just want it all plotted out.
Yep.
I could go into a lot of things here, and if we had
go for it.
And I'm not going for a beer.
I'm not going. Yeah, I'm not going to do that because I want to respect some of the other questions in time. But going back to some of what I was saying earlier with the mastery system, one of the questions that has just intrigued me for a long time, and I've said it before in some places, I can't even remember when at this point, but around 2013, I had completely stopped playing MMOs because they were so samey. I had just gotten pretty much fully jaded, and there was the formula was too consistent and too obvious. And so anytime you started a new MMO or went back to the MMOs that you were playing, it was just more of the same. And I finally had to force myself to admit that I just wasn't super interested. And it's been an interesting dynamic for me working on Pantheon since the beginning, is essentially working against my own disinterest in a way, to really try and capture like what kind of game is actually going to genuinely reignite that engine again, to be excited about immersing myself and investing myself in an MMO again. And all the different systems have that kind of heartbeat in it, but the perception system is uniquely probably one of the strongest. And I think I've told the story before about where the idea for it came from in Guild Wars 2 in Divinity's Reach, and just looking at a beautiful POI and not having a quest for it. And so that moment, and that's when I started struggling to keep interest, is just realizing like I'm literally looking at my mini map and flashing lights and arrows more than I'm playing the game. And I immediately lost a lot of interest in the world, the POIs, the things, even though it's absolutely breathtakingly beautiful in some areas. I want to go where I'm drawn. I want to go and find the things that I find interesting. And that was kind of the primordial brew of the perception system. It was originally called environmental storytelling, and then I changed it to perception because it was so massive in scope and like so aggressive in like everything that I really wanted it to be and do, that we had to tone it down and make it at least as a launch version, so that we could then build on it from there. But it's very simple at its heart, and it's one of the same reasons why we've pushed to get things like world items and lootable props in the environment, like just finding a sword on a weapon rack in a bandit camp, or being able to rummage through a crate and have the chance to pull out something useful, and then even a much smaller chance, but still a chance to find something really valuable in those places. Perception is very similar, and it really comes down to when I'm playing an MMO, I don't want to feel like I'm playing a game lobby, like I'm just running around in a lobby, waiting to go either to this section or this section to find something to do. But I want to literally like log in, and even if I only have 30 minutes to play, just start running somewhere, knowing that there's a chance through the perception system, there's a chance through these lootable world items and the event system and climate acclimation, day and night, and the way that we're weaving all these systems together. There are so many things that I can find to do that, especially with the perception system, can be uniquely kind of according to my story and the decisions I've made up until that point. And it creates these really interesting short and long form hooks that just make it really exciting to log in. And I'm just going to run around based on everything I've done the last week. I'm going to go and run around in Fairthale for a little bit, gather some things, and I'm being conditioned as a player to know that based on the things I've done, I fully expect to stumble upon perception and storyline content that I couldn't before, just from the past week's worth of adventures. So I'm super excited about it. I'm glad to hear that you guys are too, and it's something we're working really hard to capture and permeate. That's the key. It has to permeate the game to such a degree that it literally does make everywhere you go feel like that heartbeat of anticipation. Like, what am I going to find? What's going to be around the corner, under the bridge? I mean, you look at those places in MMOs that you run all the time ad nauseum, you just don't even think about it. And now all of a sudden there's a reason, to go and look around and an expectation of discovery.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And I also want to step in and say that it also is like a DM, right? It's almost like a dungeon master is like telling you something that, kind of leads you to a certain place or something like that a DM might do. And it intrigues you, and it kind of knocks you off your path you thought you were going to do. And you're like, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So I get a D&D feel from the perception for real a lot of the time.
Oh, actually, I have a question that I don't know if you can answer it, Japa. Do you plan on, because I just thought of the possibilities, do you plan on tying in the perception system to the other facets of the game as far as like crafting or, obviously adventuring, but is that, I mean, that's an option, obviously. Do you have that plan ahead of you?
It's a fine line, because if you do that and you do it too well or too much, then it can make it feel like you're not a full crafter if you're not also a keeper. And the goal right now is to, or the philosophy I should say, is that each of the three spheres, adventuring, crafting, and perception, shouldn't, other than adventuring being kind of, the universal one, you shouldn't feel like you have to do any of the other two. They're there to opt into if you choose. And the that's always the challenge is, making enough of an incentive and enough carrots to reach for as a keeper, if you do the perception system, that doesn't end up becoming something where everyone feels like they have to do it or they're going to be a subpar player. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean that there's not plans and ways that we see it in being incorporated into all the various different aspects of the game, including some of the, the different gameplay systems, and a lot of really, interesting. It's going to absolutely be a more flavor-filled, immersive experience to be a keeper, bottom line, hands down, regardless of what you're doing. But in terms of the tangible benefits and like actual progression paths that related specifically to crafting or specifically to something, I'm just going to leave it at that. We're looking for ways to do that doesn't end up making it to where everyone feels forced to do it.
Gotcha.
I just feel though, if you don't do it, you're missing out on a key component of the game, in terms of story, but also in terms of finding things too, because we've seen in one of the streams, I believe it was with Ko, where he went behind a hidden wall. I think it was in Amber Fate, I want to say, and that was driven through the perception system, if I'm not mistaken. But would there then be other like Easter eggs along with that, or is that is it strictly going to be more so on the storytelling in that facet?
What do you, when you say Easter eggs, what do you have any examples?
Well, I mean, like things that are like loot or anything that's achievable through the perception system that somebody can miss out on if they didn't become a keeper.
So the main exception that I want to call out is we don't want to make a habit of gating we just say public content. I don't know the best word for it, but like we've always said with the example we showed in Hell Near Cave for a long time with the key that drops, that was kind of a poor example to choose, because that key opened a door to the primary section of that dungeon. If it was it could have been a key that dropped that opened a door to a section of the dungeon that was not primary. And when I say primary, I mean that's the door you need to go through to get to the section of Hunter Cave with the Wraiths that ultimately where you get the key to get to Nashra and actually do the whole dungeon experience. That's where we're drawing a line, where it would be too much to say like you have to have a keeper in your group or you can't even do 50% of this area. Now, as the game grows and as the game ages and we have more places and we may identify certain places where, and maybe not just with the perception system, but with crafting as well, where you need, a master keeper or a master craftsman to access certain areas, or even just create the itemization, or talk to a certain NPC to get them to warm up to the rest of the party so that people can. I'm not saying that's not an option or something that wouldn't be really cool, but we want to be careful with making it too much that way too early on. But absolutely, like, it's not just going to be main storylines and narratives that you have access to as a keeper. It's totally 100% good with there being certain itemizations and certain things that you have access to as a keeper that no one else does. Same way, a master craftsman, I could very easily, be able to equip certain items that only master craftsmen can equip or use because of a reward for the amount of time and energy and effort they've put in to something. So I think people are going to be pleased with the balance there between in a way isolated systems where you don't feel the need to do one to be adequate in another, but then plenty of perks, plenty of incentives, plenty of tangible carrots to reward you for the time that you've invested in it.
Right. Okay.
All right. So bring us forward, Baz. Quick!
I know, seriously. So in June, I think, not to toot my own horn, but I think the only noteworthy thing that happened in June was my interview with Joppo, which he alluded to earlier, where we talked about the limited action sets. And again, I think I had much, a similar experience from my point of view as Minus did, where it was nice. We just kind of had an open discussion and ended up going longer than we were planning on it, but it was totally good because we got a lot of I think really valuable information out of that. Now that was like the topic of LAS is something that the team has talked about. I mean, since the beginning. I didn't think it was going to be a surprise that the game was going to have LAS. Like the point of the interview was just to dig deeper into kind of the nuts and bolts of it, which we did. But I'm almost kind of wishing we had done it sooner. It felt long overdue to talk about that, and I was kind of surprised to find out how many people, even people who had been following the game for a while, were just not aware that was how combat in Pantheon was going to work. And so It's really interesting reading the feedback from that interview because of how revealing it was, right, Joppa?
Yeah, for sure. That's a great example. I'm not going to talk too long on this one, but it's a great example of what I was saying earlier about, a tenant, and when we talk in the tenants and the Pantheon difference about the kind of preparation that's going to go into combat, and not having like a full arsenal available to you at all times, but having to make meaningful choices about not only your abilities, but what kind of equipment that you're wearing, and the different things beyond just the NPC or NPCs in front of you, but the environment itself that you have to contend with. It was an opportunity to kind of ratchet down on that and talk specifics in terms of, this is how we're going to actually realize that philosophy. And it was great. It was great to talk through that. And I thought, again, another example of great questions, very thought-provoking, very well worded, that allowed for some really good conversation to flow out of it beyond just the main topic.
There are a few hot button topics like that, like LAS and July's highlights too, which we'll get to in a second, I'm sure. But some of these topics tend to be surprisingly polarizing.
Yeah, that was definitely one of them.
Yeah,
That's a good way to put it. Good way to put it.
Yeah, and
they are, though, when it's separated from the experience of the game. It's one thing. In other words, I feel like some of these are as polarizing as they are because the game's not out yet. There's not.
Yeah, that's a fair
tangible
point.
Having experienced it, perspective. It's more just sitting in a vacuum, kind of just thinking about it and trying to apply it retrospectively to games that we've played in the past or whatever. So I don't think it would have been as polarizing had it been in context.
Yeah.
And just to, Basgrim, to give you and Joppa both a huge thumbs up and a big, just to kind of talk about how important that was. I don't know if you guys realize this, but after that conversation died down quite a bit. I think that you guys were able to address quite a bit where that hot topic constantly coming up in different discords and around the community, once it was really talked about and this is where we're going to be, it really put a pin in it. It sort of, everybody got it at that point. I think you guys did a great job of moving forward off LAS because it hasn't been a hot topic since then.
Yeah, that's really good to hear because that was the goal. And on a personal level, I think I learned something from that interview, just as far as my style as an interviewer. I think it was very. I'm glad to hear that because I think it was effective. But it was kind of interesting also reading some of the feedback where, to some people, a group of people, it almost kind of apparently came off because I was vocal at the beginning of the interview of how in most games I tend to prefer the style of combat in games that doesn't have LAS, and so I think some people interpreted that as if it was a conversation of me trying to talk Joppa out of LAS, which was not the case at all. And really, a lot of the questions I got, it was just things that I have seen people ask in the community. I can't take credit for all the questions. I didn't just conceive of all of them myself. All the interviews that I've done have been based on just the things that I see in the community, because I'm always reading on the forums and social media and Reddit, all that sort of stuff. I'm always reading what the sorts of questions that people are asking, because like you said, it was an incredibly frequently discussed topic. And so, the goal was just to take those questions that I had seen and get, a straight answer from Joppa. And I think it was, I'm really glad that it seems to have done its job.
I've got to send you a kudos as well as all of you guys on this channel and more people out in the community too, in that you bring these topics to light, and in doing so helps us tremendously because you're letting us know. I mean, we keep our own eyes on it too, but on the community and what everybody's talking about. But when you bring these to light and talk to us about it and help us to get the messaging out, it just helps tremendously, because then everybody's getting, the communication is just flowing a lot smoother, and like you said, once people sort of understand how things are working, then we can move on to the next thing. It works out really well. So thanks to all of you guys.
Yeah. And speaking of moving on to the next thing.
Yes.
Segue. Great segue.
July. Another very hot button issue that kind of came to light. This one was less planned, but this was when the death penalty, some of the details about the death penalty were quote unquote leaked. I put quotes around that because like I said, it was kind of an impromptu announcement, I guess, if you could put it, right, Joppa? How was that?
Well, like I said, and
we bring it out of him.
Never late. He's never. Wizard is. It never only says what he means to say. No, that one is interesting, and this is where it was one of those things that seems like a big deal, but the reality is, game development is so much more iterative than people realize. People from a distance like to kind of romanticize about game development as if there's this like glowing, levitating like design document that is almost like sentient and can speak and
Wait, it's not like that?
Well, no, it's not. It's not at all. It's much less romantic than that. It is a massively ongoingly iterative process, and a lot of times, the best way to move forward is to put something in place that we would call simply just a building block or a starting point, and then have something in place that's working and functioning so that you can then get an idea of, and I'm not saying you just like throw a dart against the wall. I mean, you put a starting point in place that you believe in, that you have conviction for, but then you get it in place, and then you start seeing, okay, how does this actually interact? What does this actually feel like? And so, even though yes, we announced this is kind of our starting point for the death penalty, we have always said that we will have a death penalty, and there's reasons for that. The challenge of the game, the tension that it creates, the sense of risk versus reward, but how strong, how harsh that death penalty is, and the exact shape that death penalty takes, we've always kind of left fuzzy. And this is the first time that we've come out and said, here's the shape that it's actually taking right now. Like, this is how we're setting it up right now. But it should be understood that it's in the context of a very iterative process where, as we, maybe it's not harsh enough, so we push it in that direction. Maybe it is too harsh when you think about the other aspects of the game that we want to uphold and enrich, and so we tweak it accordingly. So yes, contentious, but also needing to keep in mind that it is seeing into an iterative process.
So just to jump in on the death thing, because Joppa, you and me talked about this. Joppa, you put this out at like 11:30 Eastern time, I think, in Discord. I'm laying in bed with my girlfriend, ready to go to sleep. Nothing crazy here. And I get a ping on my phone. Holy cow, Joppa's given out the death penalty. Literally got out of bed, told my girlfriend I had to go. She looked at me. I told her what was happening. And here's the best part about this. So I actually look at her. I go, Joppa just revealed the death penalty in the game. She has no idea what that means. She goes, you have to leave, don't you? I go, yes, I do. So this is, and Joppa knows because I texted him like in Discord, and I was like, yes, I do. So I literally got out of bed, got my clothes on, ran out the door, and put a video out that night because it was such a big deal. But I thought that was really funny because Joppa, you knew that story, so just kind of shared it out there. It was fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, could we hear a little bit of an insider of what that was like at Visionary Realms after that? Because I know from our point of view, it just suddenly was out there. Minus made a video, I made a video, Bascom, a bunch of videos was launched about it like within like a 12-hour period. We were all just like scrambling. So what was it like at the Visionary Realms side when that was suddenly out in the world?
I'll answer this. It was like, Our scheme functioned. They are all putting out content much faster than we need.
It's how I keep Ben feeling young.
Yeah, well, I wasn't gonna say it. I was no, it was. My story is similar to Minus's. My phone blew up too. I'll just put it that way.
And the Joppa light was in the sky, right? Like you saw the VR logo in the sky, and I looked at my girlfriend and said, "Baby, I need to go home."
the thing of it is like these things, you know, part of my impetus in doing things like this from time to time is, you know, because it doesn't need to be that. Pantheon for too long has been kind of shrouded in what are the specifics. I mean, if you think back on, you know, a number of years ago, that was actually one of the big complaints, like flowing through the various communities, is like, we just don't know anything. We don't know specifics about, you know, you guys talk about this or that or the other, but how is it actually going to work? Give us some of the actual details. And there are certain things that it's wise to hold on to some of those details, and, you know, for various reasons. But then there's also a lot of things that's like, the more clarity, the more things we can just put out there and say, yeah, this is what we're planning to do, then I think the overall health of the community as it relates to the understanding of the game is going to improve. And so 2020 really has been a big, that's been kind of I wouldn't have said it, you know, that way. Like, this is the year that I'm really gonna, you know, do everything I can to, like, it really, that wasn't the intention. But looking back, interestingly, it really has been a year of, like, with lots of, okay, this is what we're actually going to do. This is what we're actually planning to do. These are the details. These are kind of the bullet lists that are going to make up the specifics. And the more of that, you know, the better, in my opinion. So.
All right, moving on.
Yep. Next, August. Really, the main thing in August was the website overhaul.
Yep. Which I was
going to ask if you had a picture of that. I'm sure we probably have all seen it at this point, but that was a good milestone that the community had been, and the devs had been waiting for a very, very long time. But I think it paid off. It looks great.
Yeah.
Oh, the Bane, that website, man. I'm not going to go too long on it, but I'm so glad that we got it out. Internally here, we've been wanting to do one, and I'm not joking. We've been wanting to do one for years. It's just, and I've said this before too. It was particularly complicated for us to do because everything on the back end is all tied together from a system that was put into place before we became who we are now. So all of the pledges and stuff are all tied into it. So we had to find ways to sort of separate that off without losing the entire database. Anyway, it's just a website, but it's a very complicated procedure on the back end. I'm glad that phase 1 is done. We still need the store and the pledge store and the forums to go. So they're coming as well.
Big shout out to Ronek too, who I know everyone was a part of it, but Ronek was a big part of that.
Yeah, he's been a real pillar for in terms of designing the sort of the brand style, and he had a lot of, well, he basically designed all of this. Chris, Rowan, and myself did most of the coding, but yeah, he did an awesome job in the design.
Nice.
Yep.
All right, September. Joppa appeared on the PAX Online panel with John Smedley and, oh man, I'm working off memory.
Stephen Sharif.
Yeah, Stephen Sharif. And
that was September already. Jeez.
And J Todd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a fun panel.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was really cool.
Yeah, it was really good. Out of all those, I've had the pleasure of meeting Smedley and Steven in person. So it was good to kind of reconnect with him again. It's first time meeting J Todd, but it was great. It was great to see Pantheon kind of in that place. There's some upcoming games that are absolutely worthy of attention, that are doing some really important things in terms of where this genre is headed and the way it's getting there. And I thought it was very appropriate that Pantheon was there and a part of that conversation. So it was an honor to be there, and it was a lot of fun.
I'm glad that they're still doing that. The guys who organized that, started way back when, like these panels for packs. Oh gosh, they would go back to, man, I was working at 10 Ton Hammer at the time with them, and we had started. Anyway, it's been quite a few years, and I'm just so happy to see them going on. Like the MMO panel at PAX, it's just awesome. And even despite COVID, they're still able to do it. So it was really cool to see.
For sure. And
But
also
Joppa, just keep some facial hair, Joppa. I think just a little bit. Just no full clean. We need a little facial hair.
Yeah.
Thought we were going to be on video tonight, and I was like, okay, I got it.
Yeah. Here we go.
Thank you, Ryan.
Also that month, it was very timely because that was when Pre-Alpha 5 Shakeout started at long last.
Yeah.
Yep. The big wait was over.
Yeah, it was good. It was great to have everybody back in game, and Shakeout really was that. It was a shakeout. We had to shake off the cobwebs ourselves too. We had to, pull out our whole procedures documents and everything just to kind of get the dust off the shelves and get those public realms back up. So it was good, and it served its purpose well.
And we were all very relieved to find out that it was a shakeout, not a shakedown, too.
Yeah, I've said this in a couple conversations, but in retrospect, if we were to ever need something like that again, we're not going to call it a shakeout, because so many times people called it the PA5 shakedown, and that's just not the message you want to be sending out.
Did you guys feel nervous when that was about to happen, or like what was going through your guys' minds?
There were some nerves, but we were pretty confident in the build too. Like we knew where we were at. There were still some unknowns. Like some of the stuff in the networking had changed a little bit, so we hadn't put. I mean, we've done our own internal testing, but we hadn't put them to those kinds of numbers live. And I think on the first day, maybe even the second day, we had some login server issues, but they were cleared up too. But I gotta say, for the most part, I think people were just more excited than nervous. Would you say that was the case, Chris? That's certainly how I felt.
Yeah, I mean, it's always different depending on what vantage point you're at. It's the closest thing I know how to describe it is if you've ever gotten up on a stage to perform, like you can be as confident and as you're knowledgeable and well versed in whatever material you're about to perform, but there's always that sense of nervousness, which, like with my son, for example, I say, nervousness is really just excitement, right? Like it's really just a sense of excitement that you're feeling, and kind of that's how I look at it. Is it's an exciting time, but there is a nervous energy. I think for this one specifically, it had been so long. And there's so much that we had done behind the scenes, and I think that's part of what accentuated that feeling a little bit, because it was we had made the decision beforehand, like we have to move to a more gray box forward presentation right now, because that's what's actually in line with where we are and what we're trying to accomplish, and it's going to take some time for people to get used to that. And there was definitely some what's the right word? It was not intriguing, but we were anticipating, like, what's the reaction going to be, and also preparing for it. And I think, like has been discussed since then, there's a lot that needs to be communicated when you're presenting gray box, in a public setting like this. And we've continued to try to improve our messaging on that front to make sure people understand kind of what we talked about earlier, this interview or this stream, that gray box is a very natural, normal part of development, but it was also that piece of, like, it's going to take some people by surprise, and but it's what we have to do. And now I like where we are now, and the shakeout and getting past that phase to where we are now is, I mean, we're in a really, really good place. The way that we're poised, and now, you know, the cool thing about it too is that it's going to be so impactful now. When, you know, the first time that we're able to show Throne Fast with, you know, the new Houdini-based terrain and everything to go with that, and then the speed with which we're going to be able to move that into Avendir's Pass and Silent Plains and these other zones, and, you know, just start seeing like the whole continent start to wake up. And that's it. Shakeout 1 is going to be such an amazing, crazy reference point to look back on in the not so distant future. So it's exciting.
Cool.
And with that, we'll move into October, and
we're getting
we're getting there. Although we could probably do a whole show on October, and in fact, I think some of us probably have done whole shows just on what happened in October. So try not to go too long, but there's some very, very important stuff happened in October, or at least the news of important things that happened got released to the community via the producer's letter.
Yeah, I've got to ask as well about that, because, you know, that was basically, you know, letting the cat out of the bag, and you know, it was a big message that came out. How has the overall perception been? You know, how has it been received? You know, how's the feedback been to, you know, on that producer's letter for you guys?
It's been vast majority positive. We knew that, like, we sort of felt that it was the right thing to do, but I got to do a call out to you guys as community leaders as well, because right around that time too, you guys had approached us and said, you know, we'd like some more communication, and you did it in such a way that you know, it was the kind of thing that we needed to hear as well. And it just happened to sync up with all of this, so it was a time that we really needed to sort of come around. We knew that 2020 had been mostly quiet. Prior to that, 2019 had even been quite quiet as well. So we knew that we had to, you know, come out and, you know, just kind of lay it all out there. So we did. And the vast majority of it was very well received. I mean, you're always going to get the outlying comment, and to be fair too, some of those outlying comments were fair. You know, like they're you know, why did it take so long to come to this point to tell us about this stuff? You know, and that was a perfectly fair assessment. So there was nothing that happened that was unexpected. It was, but I think it was a good step. It was a good step for all of us.
Cool.
And go ahead.
I was just going to say, if any listeners or viewers don't know what we're talking about, you go back and read the October newsletter.
Yeah, that's really the only. It's the best way to put it, because, like I said, we could probably sit here and talk about it for like an hour.
There's a lot in there. Yeah.
Although I will add to that too, that just after, like, I think it was like a matter of days after that, then Nathan interviewed you, Ben. And kind of fleshed it out even more and got some really good clarification on it.
Yeah, that was a really good interview. I had fun there. Nathan did an awesome job.
Yeah, we got good chemistry. We're both paladins.
Yeah.
At the time of this recording anyway, because I hear Ben's about to maybe jump the boat. But
yeah, that's it. It's over, dude. Over for you now, Nate.
That was good.
But I just want to say,
burn the puppet.
That Ben Dean, I want to say it here in public with everybody live here. I made a puppet of Ben. Some of you may know, and I kind of coined him as the, kind of the I don't want to say it, but no beans Dean. But he in that interview, if you haven't seen it, he dropped the beans like a madman. So I apologize for that, because it turns out I was incorrect. You are mini beans, Dean.
Come on, be honest, Nate. Right? It's a voodoo puppet.
Oh, that's what's happening. I was wondering.
Yeah.
You know, I took it the other way. I think that he was dropping all those beans like specifically to prove you wrong. I think making that puppet of him really spurred him to do that.
Yeah, the gauntlet was thrown down. So.
Yeah, I had a plan from the beginning, guys. It's all part of my plan.
Reverse psychology for the win.
I was telling Nathan as well. You know, even my friends are calling me that now too. So I think it's sticking regardless. That's okay.
What about Big Papa Joppa? Anybody Joppa? Do your friends call you Papa Joppa now?
My children do sometimes.
As far as it goes.
That's awesome.
Well, let's not forget that the whole beans thing came from Nathan. Like the whole culture of Pantheon having the word beans, that all came from a video Nathan wrote.
Did it really?
Well, yeah, it came from a puppet video about asking for beans.
Yeah, so I maybe made it more normal for people to talk about, but actually I stole it because I noticed that the developers were saying it sometimes. They would say like, "Oh, there's a little bean."
I thought that was a Kilson thing. I think
that's what I thought as well. I thought it was Kilson as well. Yeah,
it was. I just made people start saying it more. That's all.
Okay. Because I think like Kilson technically invented it because he called himself the keeper of beans.
Yes,
but then Nate popularized it,
which I think what it was with Kilson, he was getting annoyed with being called the Dream Crusher. So
can you blame him?
Exactly. So Keeper of Beans kind of sounds a little more relaxed and unharmful and undisappointing. So I think that was the whole plan all along, because you hardly ever see people now mention, "Oh look, it's the Dream Crusher." It's now the Keeper of Beans.
That's true, actually. Dream Crusher is an old one. That's an oldie.
Yeah, and I also, real quick, while we're on the subject, before we move on, guys, I want to point out that I made the puppet a Joppa, right? And then the very next time they went live, he'd shaved his beard, and I was like, "Well, now my puppet is useless." Was that on purpose? Were you like, "No more puppet Joppa, I'm shaving the beard"?
Just gotta shave the puppet.
It's just
simple,
easy.
Also in October was a very busy month, but good kind of busy, because then Pre-Alpha 5 testing continued in full force through October. And through that, then Minus released his gameplay footage from PA5 from the Rogue perspective, which was kind of that was a pretty monumental moment in its own right too. To just kind of just say like, here it is.
Yeah, that was my strategy. Ben, you unfortunately, Joppa doesn't get this as much as you do, but that was my be as annoying as possible to try to achieve things moment. Ben, you've been the recipient of many emails that have detailed our channel growth back in the day. And I said, Rogue is out there. Ben, I really like rogues. This would be a cool opportunity, but I just want to really thank Ben, because we worked a lot on that together, and it wouldn't have happened without Ben. So thank you for that.
No, the thanks again go to you. It was a fantastic idea, and we've been wanting to do more public streams anyway, and we hope to do more of them in the future as well. What with a streamer program and all of that, I know that some of you guys have had a chance to do some of your own streams, and it's always been a tricky thing for us, because with it being gray box and with it being pre-alpha, it's very hard to try to convey that to all viewers. But we just came to the point where it's like, you know what, let's just do it. So I think I asked you to put a disclaimer on the video that said pre-alpha build or something like that, but the content was just fantastic, and just that organic gameplay, that was really something special.
Yeah, and huge shout out to Ben, because honestly, guys, I swear to you, I know a lot of people get skeptical, but Ben, you literally didn't make me cut anything out of that video. You let me show it to you, and then you just had me put that little bit in, and I just it's awesome. Thank you guys for that. And I do want to, Joppa, unfortunately did nerf rogues because of me, so thanks, Joppa.
No, they needed it. They needed it regardless of you. But those videos, those streams, they're so key. That was my favorite part about that stream, is just kind of solidifying the fact that there's just, we can get in and play the game, stream it, talk about it, but there's nothing as impactful as seeing, an actual community perspective playing the game, talking about what they're experiencing. And so I'm gonna be kind of getting wild and crazy internally here pushing for that because it's so good. It's so impactful, so effective. So anyway, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
Shall we move on to November?
Yes.
All right, we're so close yet so far. Nefel got hired in November. That's good news. As an associate game designer.
Yeah, so let's quickly give everybody some info. So Nef was, he's a big community member and big on the crafting as well. So it was good to, if you don't know him, Pantheon Crafters is where he was housed, and did a lot of. He's got a mind for crafting. It's his passion. So it was really good to hear VR pick him up.
He's crushed it since he's been on team here too. Monday, was it this Monday, Chris? I think it was Monday. We got a little bit of a quick look at what he's put together. Unfortunately, no beans, but it's super impressive what he's doing already. He's just dove right in, really taking the bull by the horns.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I mean it's he and Tim convo.
Yeah.
Were in the beginning, Tim has done a lot of work on kind of the ideation of crafting for a long time, and worked closely with Corey when Corey was here. And then after Corey left, Tim kind of took over shepherding that stuff. And what I loved seeing in the beginning was the kind of relationship that he and Neff forged. And ultimately, as you learn to do, there's a lot of delegation that happens in game development because you can't do everything. And what I really loved seeing is the process of bringing Neff on, Neff coming in with all of his ideas, all of his passion, all of his energy, and just what makes him awesome. And that kind of that handoff happening where Tim, taking some of these foundational principles, core things, and them, having about a month of like really solid, consistent sessions, really kind of forging out that those fundamentals, and then that handoff where now Neff's really been able to start running with just an insane amount of energy and progress. And the cool thing for everybody listening, what this all boils down to ultimately is a crafting and harvesting system that will be coming online much sooner and be very, very well fleshed out. I'm not a huge crafting person. I'm not the person you want designing a harvesting and crafting system, but I'm actually really intrigued by this, and some of the things that are going to make ours really unique actually kind of has me pretty jazzed. So excited for it to come online.
I want to say too that something that seems to be very prevalent in Visionary Realms that I'm sure lots of people have noticed is the knack for finding talent. Brad McQuaid have it, and you guys have it too, because I don't think you could have picked a better person to head up crafting.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, right. Like that's an amazing decision right there, and you guys have done that every time. Like every time you bring somebody on, even if the person doesn't know them, you look into their background or what have you, and you're like, wow, they picked the best person ever for that.
But if you look at it in general, though, how much has come from the community that's part of VR. It's amazing to see. I don't know any other development company out there that has that unique process of hiring, because it is unique. It's a unique process. A lot of people have come through the ranks of being a community member first, and then obviously through contact and doing things and everything, they become a part of the team, and it's wonderful to see that, because it's all out of passion. We all have the same passion as the developers themselves. So yeah,
it really is kind of that natural feel, because it's what makes most sense. Heck, even Chris Perkins started off that way.
And Kelson and a lot. And actually, I didn't mention it earlier, but I feel like we should give out a shout out to Sacred too, because actually he's another one that got picked out of the community. He was a streamer just like us, and he originally got hired in 2018, I think, but it's noteworthy for this year because he left for briefly, if I remember correctly, but he rejoined the team this year kind of quietly, and he was QA before, but he's slipped in as another game designer as well.
one of the most unsung important things about game design, especially MMO game design, is balance and tuning, and all of the different things that touches, and the way that it affects itemization, ability scaling, just the whole power progression schema. And Sacred is amazing. It's something that I personally love, but I'm not a math guy. Not anywhere near enough anyway to kind of wrap my whole brain and being around all that. And he is. And it's funny because he's like, he doesn't come across that way necessarily, but it's like this kind of sleeping superpower that he has, that he's able to just process such an insane array of numbers and schematic and just these scaling paradigms. And I'm just looking at a document, talking to him yesterday, of all these like these graphs and bell curves and like different things, and he's explaining all this incredible stuff, and it's just reinforcing over and over again, like this is the guy. This is the guy. So he's both Neff and Sacred, very, very timely, very, very like rock star grade talent in their respective areas. So huge wins for Pantheon.
Yeah, no doubt. And also November. So that the hiring was the good news. Bad news that I feel like we need to address. I don't want to end this month on a bad note, but I feel like we would be remiss if we didn't mention the passing away of Molad that also happened.
Yep.
Which, like, is just more, I guess it's just more shocking to me than anything about, it also happened the same month that Brad passed away a year ago. And so it's like, yeah.
Wow.
And so that, and just like being, I've just never heard of anything like that with a small team, with a project like this, and losing people like that along the way and still just moving forward is just incredible to me.
I think that was really the sentiment when we all found out. I think that was kind of the atmosphere that was going on, was like, just none of us were able to process it, like, because it was so sudden. And it's like, how is this happening? Like, why? It's, I don't know. It's really hard to explain. But
yeah, it's like, what the heck? Like,
yeah, he was something special, that guy. I remember the first time that we work remotely. Most of us do. Actually, all of us do. But we do have a headquarters in California. But anyway, the first time that I met him face to face was at TwitchCon in.
I remember that.
Yeah, Baz, you were there too. And I talked to him a lot, obviously, prior to that. But just being able to sit down with him for the first time, he just had this presence about him. When you spoke to him, he was really looking at you, like he was really just absorbing, like you were the only thing in the world at that point to him. He was just completely involved, and no matter what you had to say, whether you're talking about a passion or you're talking about the weather, you had his full attention. And just his eyes were just so caring. You could see the soul in him. And I remember it just hit me so hard. I came back home, and I told I told everybody. Like I told a couple people on the programming side, and I think I told Chris Perkins. I said, and I told Lynn, our project manager. I said, you have to meet this guy. He just has this kind soul. It's impossible to explain. You just have to meet him. And regrettably, some of them didn't get that chance. A lot did, though. He did get a chance to meet a lot of people face to face. So.
Actually, I kind of want to tell this story because it's funny, because I actually specifically remember the moment you met Molad, and it's really the only memory I have of him from when we met at TwitchCon, or at least the one that sticks out in my head is that I think, like, you and I think we're like talking. We were just at the booth, And as you mentioned, you had never met him in person before that, because you work remote. And he came up to the booth and was like just watching the screen just like anybody else. And I think you were in such the habit of just like talking to random people about the game as they came up, and so you go up to him, he's like, so do you have any questions about the game? And he's like, I'm on the team. And you're like, oh.
Yeah, I remember that.
And we all had a laugh about that, because that was super funny.
Yeah.
I think the tribute you guys did to him with the Sky Grazer is beautiful too. I got to point that out, so that when people see the Sky Grazer out in the plains, the graceful, tall, long-necked creature, which is beautiful, by the way, that we can all remember. Triple him. I think that's
I wanted to jump on that, Nathan, because I linked it in chat for you guys. But if you haven't seen Jared speaking to what Molad meant for the team, like Joppa and Mikhail, I don't know if it was just Jared on his own doing that, but I got to tell you, I hung on every word, and I think a lot of the community did. And it was just listening to him talk, like it hit me deep in my heart, in my soul. And like Jared deserves a huge thank you, I think, from the entire community to kind of hear the way he was able to express it so vividly and so emotionally and so positively, right? To turn it into, and I just, big shout out to Jared for that. I linked that stream, and if you guys haven't seen that, that's a phenomenal stream, and much needed for a community that was hurting a little bit.
I love how that turned out too, because we knew we had the stream coming up, and it was just a few days or a week, or so, a little over a week after it had happened, and I'm like, how we have to address this. We can't just leave it hanging there. I'm like, how do we do this? I mean, we had to do the same thing with Brad, and so I was racking my brain. I'm thinking, how can we do this but not make the whole stream incredibly depressing? And Jared was working on the video already, and he pinged me and he said, would it be all right if I did a small segment to remember Kurt? And I'm like, how perfect that would be. So he did, and like you said, it was we couldn't, like, he just nailed everything. Just his words, and just even what was happening on screen, it was just wonderful. It just really worked out. I was happy he did that.
Yeah, that was a good moment with the reveal when he showed the Sky Grazer. Yeah, I don't think there's not really much more to say about it, because I think Jared pretty much put it the best way you can.
Yeah.
So for November, the only other thing, some good news, that I would like the devs to kind of explain a little bit more, because it was in November. I think in that same stream, you mentioned that the evaluation build was, I think the way you put it, you said it met all of its goals. Can you just briefly explain a little bit more, like what? Because I've seen some confusion among the community about like what the difference is between the evaluation build and Project Fairthale, and what meeting all of its goals actually means.
There's I understand why there's confusion, because the evaluation build is completely meant to be used when we're speaking with potential partners. And to be fair, that was actually done in pre-alpha shakeout, or PA5 shakeout 2. We just didn't have all of that content in there for the PA testers. And that evaluation build had specific goals. Like, we knew that we needed X, Y, and Z if we were going to continue conversations with an investor or a publisher, potential partners. So that's all that was. The thing is that evaluation build, its goals tie into the overarching roadmap for Pantheon. So it's not diverting anything. It's just kind of a subset of all of that. I think that's probably the easiest way to explain it.
Well, the other thing to say too, it's, MMOs can be, I mean, I've sat in pretty much every evaluator demonstrate every time the game has been demonstrated, I've been there just about, and it has constantly reinforced the fact that MMOs are very difficult to convey because they're long form experiences,
especially in 30 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. And so a lot of what the evaluator build we're working on right now specifically is taking all of those systems that exist, naturally in much more of a much larger, overtime experience, and condensing it down into a much more impactful short form experience where the whole of what Pantheon is can be communicated much more quickly.
Gotcha. And along with that, moving into December, we had another.
We made it! December! Woohoo!
We did. All that's really, I mean, we're in December right now, and we're only halfway through the month. So really, the only other thing worth mentioning that kind of ties into what we were just talking about is the pre-alpha test that we had at the beginning of the month, the first week of December, and that's where we're at.
Yep. And next up's Christmas.
That was NDA content. You were supposed to mention that. No, I'm just kidding. No, yeah. Yeah, that's too current to date.
Yep.
Yeah, and well, we're right at the 2-hour mark, so I think we did pretty good pacing on that.
Yeah.
But I know you wanted some questions.
Yeah, we didn't skip a lot either as well. So we caught up pretty well.
I think we did good. I think we hit all the highlights.
Yeah.
So we also, we forwarded some questions to VR. So we'll try and keep these short and simple, so we can get some of the viewer questions in. Obviously, with the time that's passed already, we won't be able to, answer them all. But I promise, all the questions that were posted, I will forward them to VR, and then they can basically, or forward them to Baz and Nate and Minus, and they can, pass those on and maybe do some dev interviews with the guys and ask those questions. So they'll definitely get answered. But anyway, we our first question we had is, will Bard make it to launch?
TBA.
They have it, Booch.
What is
TBA?
Did you notice how quickly Ben jumped in front of Joppa?
I know.
Give him a chance.
To be honest, that's because the neck card's coming out instead.
I've already spoken my piece on this. So technically, the right answer is tentatively, but like I've said, I will. I'm planning to do everything in my power ability to get it in, and it's not just because I'm this massive Bard fan, even though I love Bard. It's that, and I've talked a bit about this before, and I mean he understands. We get it. The community gets it. The planned crowd control classes.
Yeah.
2 of them, the Bard and the Necromancer, are not, have not been spoken of as definite things. So that's the main impetus behind it is, if it means getting at least one of those in to fill out that role, that's really kind of the main driver. So it is tentative. It's not like a 100% certain guarantee, but it is something that we take very seriously.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I just want to say we don't know where that question came from, Booch, right?
Yeah, we know.
So, you've already, we spoke about this earlier on during the stream, but will the game with its original tenants make it to launch without selling the IP to an outside publisher?
So we've spoken about this a lot, actually, too, and I'll just kind of reiterate what we've always said, which still holds true, is that we never go into a partnership that isn't mutually agreed. So we have our tenets, we have our culture, and that is priority number 1 to maintain. So we'll never be in a position where we lose control of the IP, which I think is kind of reading between the lines of this question. I could be wrong, but yeah, that's not a situation that we're even going to open ourselves up to. We really value our title, and we're going to keep it.
Yep, and you deserve it as well. So stick to your guns.
Yeah.
So this is actually a good question and a fun one as well. And what's the biggest myth the community has had about Pantheon that the team would like to dispel?
That the Bard is going to make it for launch.
Well played, Ben. Well played.
Kuda, that was well done.
That backfired. That was my question.
Both working to dispel the myth from different sides.
Yeah. No, geez, there's so many though. I don't know. Chris, do you want to take this one? I have so many thoughts on it.
Oh man, I'm gonna kind of reorient the question and answer it. Maybe not right on the nose, but the day that I look forward to more than any other day is the day when it is just beyond any like argument that Pantheon is going to achieve everything that we set out to achieve in terms of the quality of the game and just how fundamentally good of a game it is. And so I guess where the myth that it connects to is, something that is reminiscent to very, very early on with the whole vaporware thing. It's the idea that Pantheon's vaporware, it's never coming out. And more recently when we went through, that Project Fairtail stretch, that kind of, in some corners of the internet started to resurface again. And, when you're a game in development and when you're, it's becoming more apparent like how long these things do take and just where we're at and the, varying levels of expectation. It's not something that I can't empathize with, but the day that it just blows that thought out of the water that this is anything but a certainty and that the game that Pantheon is becoming is a great game, that's the day that I long for. That's the day that fuels every day, like every morning. It's like that's the whole onward and upward piece. It is. We talk about all the challenges we've been through. We talk about how difficult things have been from time to time, and how the amount of time that it's taking to make Pantheon. Which believe it or not, it's hard for us too. We want this game to be made just as much, if not more so, than the most passionate fans out there. So that's the day I'm looking forward to.
And that's the thing as well, though, when people talk about how long it's been taking. If we look back, it was like 2013, 2014 when it came to light. Brad put it out there, Kickstarter, this, that, and the other. You've now been we've been like 5-6 years in development. That's actually still, considering where you guys are with the state of the game and how the team's spread out. You don't have a studio where you're all sitting down together and everything. You're spread out throughout the world. If you look at all the other MMOs out there, a lot of them, they're already 7 years in development behind closed doors before it even comes to light. So it's another misconception that people have. They look at it and go, "Oh, you guys have been 6 years at it. When's it finally coming out?" I think that's actually a good number, and considering where you guys are, you're actually good on time.
To sort of springboard off of that too, because this was kind of high on my list too. One of the things that we constantly, but we often get called out on is that a lot of people seem to still think that we're this large corporation with unlimited funds. But I encourage everyone to take a look at our team page, pantheonmmo.com/team. That's the team. That's it. That's who we have. And we've gotten to a state that we're all very proud of and continuing to do so. But yeah, if there's one of those myths that I would like to dispel is that we're doing this with the kind of resources that an EA or an Ubisoft would have. We just don't have that kind of.
Yeah, that's a good point, and that's something I see a lot as well. But that's where it kind of gets tricky because there definitely are some people that will they look at the timeline and they think that you should be so much further along than you are right now. But then really the only other thing they have to compare it to is like AAA studio development that is it's just a completely different project. So yeah, of course, when you have to raise money as you go, of course it's going to take longer. Now, I think it is very valid criticism or skepticism, I guess would be a better word, for that people think, well, the longer it goes, the more money it takes. And I think where the vaporware thing comes in is people are concerned that the money is just going to dry up, and money is kind of the fuel, and it's like, it's necessary to keep moving forward. So I think that's what people are concerned about. But Ben, I will say you made a good post on the forums that answered that pretty well, I think, about kind of your different contingency plans and stuff for how, funding and the path to launch. And so I think just personally, that's something I would like to hear you guys elaborate more and address more, not just on the forums, but on a bigger scale.
But not on this show,
Yeah. Let's do it in the new year.
So I'll ask one more of our questions.
Yarn, can I jump in for 1 second?
Go on in.
I'm gonna get myself in trouble here with some of the community, so this could be bad. But you guys talked about something you want to dispel. Just the thought process here, Joppa or Mikhail, you do not have to comment on this, but there's this myth that's constantly lived within this, that this game is like an EQ clone. It's going to be EQ. It's going to be EQ. And it's funny because the FAQ, the number one thing it said on the old website was, this game is not a clone of EQ. We're going to be its own game. Do you guys want to put anything in there, or you don't have to, but comment on the fact that, this word modern MMORPG is like this curse word in the MMO community, but what it means is modern has existed. Modern is an English word, and it means evolution, right? It means now. Anything you guys want to comment about Pantheon standing on its own? Because I personally feel like, and I think a lot of the community feels like, that this game is going to harken back to EQ, and it's going to remember things that made EQ big and important that have been forgotten, but the Pantheon's going to be its own game. Any comment on that?
I'm elated to hear you say that, because that's exactly it. Yes, we know those tenets, and they are tenets, to bring back where reputation matters, where community matters, where you need other people, where you have memorable experiences, and that's huge. That goes into every fiber of the game. But yeah, we're not remaking EverQuest. We're making a 2020 game that has those tenets.
Nice.
I'm a guy.
So I'll ask one more of ours, and then we'll jump into the community questions as best we can.
Whoa!
Huh?
That's a big one to just float past, because that's so EQ clone. I think you have to think about what that actually means, because EverQuest, when you look at EverQuest from a design perspective, it's an extremely simple game, right? I mean, we're talking very simple in terms of actual gameplay systems. EverQuest was the first 3D MMORPG experience. It was one of the first times that, people in their teenage years, which I was, we were just being introduced to the concept of the internet, chat rooms, and now all of a sudden you've got this persistent online world where you can talk to people just like a chat room, meet real people, develop real relationships, and do it all within the context of this incredible RPG experience. And you're talking about just this mind-blowing thing where now 2 decades later, more so, that's old hat. That's normal. That's totally normal. So when you think about, okay, what does an EQ clone actually mean? A true EQ clone would be an incredibly simplistic game with very simple mechanics and very bare bones stuff, which, judging from even just our pre-alpha sessions so far, we can't get our differentiating systems online fast enough, because it's amazing how quickly people grow weary of that, go out into the world, kill things, loot things, level up. So I think it's really important to say that what EverQuest did was it defined a type of MMORPG experience. It defined a type of experience that is has not, in my opinion anyway, has not been replicated in spirit. I'm not saying it hasn't been, specific mechanic wise. And so a lot of what Pantheon is setting out to do is look back at that classic era of EverQuest and vanilla World of Warcraft and some of the things that made those games so impactful from a high level experience point of view. Things like social interaction, things like challenge with actual risk, associated with it. Things like immersion and a game that felt more like you were living in and engaging with a more of a real world than a kind of facade of a game lobby theme park type experience. But then what we're doing is we're taking 20 years of MMOs, 20 plus years of MMO games and development and progress and evolution, and we're saying okay, what gives Pantheon the right, what gives Pantheon the right to stand up among so many peers and demand attention? That's the way that I'm looking at Pantheon, and some of that is unapologetically embracing some of those tenets, those potentially in some cases polarizing, or at least some tenets that not the mass populations of people won't immediately warm to. That's some of it, but a lot of it too, and more so, is looking at how to take some of these fundamental systems that make these games so good and so fun and sticky and evolve them in a way that feels fresh. And so there's so much to say there, but I hope that there are not still those who think that Pantheon at any point in time, today or 6-7 years ago, was ever about just reskinning EverQuest. That was never the plan, never the goal. The goal is to be a renaissance of that era of what made those games so good and almost kind of this unique breed in terms of their philosophy, and then find that place in the modern gamut.
It's really well said. And if you think about people talking about the it being an EQ clone and this, that, and the other, I don't look at it like that. Never have, because if you look about the socialization aspect of it, you look about everything you just talked about. Those come from us, the players. It's got nothing to do with the game. Yes, it was an MMO. It was, it was the first of its kind and everything. But when you look back at it, that social aspect, yes, while that game did bring that, though, it was something that we did as people. So the game offered us to, that possibility to do that, and the way MMOs evolved over time was, cookie cutter, hand holding. Here, press one button, you get to the end. You don't have to group with people. You don't have to do this. That was something that a lot of these MMOs adapted to, and EQ was there all by itself, having that social aspect, the challenge, the immersion. Because you had to pay attention to what you were doing, your surroundings. That was, yes, part of the process of the development. But at the end of the day, the way I see it, we're earning, we're leaning towards getting that back. And that's the social aspect of us as human beings. We did that, not the game necessarily itself. And, the people that always go out and go, it's an EQ clone. No, it's not. Why? Every other game out there, took some, they basically evolved through EQ. EQ was the first of its kind. It was unique. And, that's how things are done. Everything you look at that we engage with is cloned from somewhere. Or not cloned, but it's evolved from somewhere. And, it's really hard to get away from that. And it doesn't matter what game it is, be it Pantheon, the next one, they'll all have that relation there. As soon as you mention socialization, immersion, challenge, everybody goes EQ clone. But it's wrong. It shouldn't be done like that. It's the social aspect of us as humans that we earned. We lean towards that. You know, we made that social aspect, that challenge, and that immersion and the game basically supported us and gave us that way to do it.
Yeah, and Yarn, even to jump on that too, like if you're not evolving in a business, you die.
Exactly.
Like, everything has to evolve.
Well, you know, also the fact that I mean, you could say it's not an EQ clone, but it shares some of the fundamental tenets of the original EQ, which isn't a negative thing. That's an asset.
Yeah.
Because that's what everyone who's involved in this game is looking for. I mean, at least I'm not going to speak for everyone, but I mean that's the kind of the idea of it. It's bringing us back to the original tenets that they brought forward, and that's not a negative thing.
No,
I would even go further and say it actually comes back to the primary tenet that Brad was talking about right from day one.
Absolutely.
He just wants to build a world exactly the same as EQ did at the beginning. Just build a world, you can do the rest. Make it count. Make there be challenge. There's your world.
There you go.
You said it well too, Yarn. And the thing is, I think that the MMO space has just been missing the opportunity to, you know, let loose those social aspects of people's nature. So all we need to do is just give them a place where they have that opportunity. Give them the opportunity. Give the players the opportunity, and they'll make their experience.
Yeah, and I want to hop in and say now, before I say this, I'm going to walk the line of the NDA with one foot in front of the other, much like Minus might have to if he were to get pulled over right now. Pantheon is unique already in its current state. It has the spirit of an old school MMO, right? You can feel that DNA, but it still is already very unique and very different than EverQuest or insert any other game here. And that's at this stage, right? So as everything gets more fleshed out and all the systems are in place and they're right in front of our face and all that kind of thing, it's going to simply blow people's minds. And I mean old school MMO players, I mean new school ones, people that's never played an MMO before in their life. You can already in the DNA feel these things shaping and building, and it's going to be amazing. And I think it's going to go way beyond people's expectations at the end of the day.
Yep, nicely said. So we'll skip the questions that we had, and we'll definitely get those. We'll definitely get those answered though. You know, Nathan, Minus, Bazgrim, anybody who wants to put them out. And we'll grab some from chat, because obviously we're definitely pushing the mark here. So go. Just pull whatever you think, Shy, and ask away.
I will do my best.
We'll do 5 minutes.
Okay. Trasak would like to know if he can pester you about selling large prints of Jared's speed paints of the environments, because they are absolutely killer and he wants full-size versions.
Oh, we get that kind of request a lot, and I love it. It's just that there's legal implications when it comes to stuff like that. It just makes it very difficult to do, because you need to protect the IP. If you don't protect the IP, then there can be a case made that you're not protecting the IP, and then you could lose the IP. So it gets really tricky. But in any case, more than I can answer online over the air right now, feel free to reach out to me at ben@visionaryrealms.com. We can talk more.
Okay, next question is from Lighted 147, asking if you can say anything about seeable progression for your character, because a certain game's expansion that just came out has locked progression behind weekly unlocks. So after you do all your weeklies in one day, you have to wait until the following week to progress further. And it's kind of just boring. So she wants to know if you've got any ideas about that.
Well, that immediately reminds me of like mobile games that use energy systems to do anything, and that's like anathema. No, there no plans for dailies, for weeklies, for monthlies, no plans for time locked or time gated content where you're having to you can only go so far before you have to wait a week and do it again. I mean, unless we're talking about things like, respawns and, there could be certain necessary dungeon lockouts and raid lockouts or things like that. Potentially just as part of the way to balance the consumption of that progression on that level in those ways. But with what you're describing, no, we don't have any plans for that.
Okay. Silvata de Barber would like to know what kind of thoughts you have on cosmetics and transmog in-game.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's too big of a question. We might not be able to get into that.
I promise you I won't talk on this. I promise everybody.
Yeah, you be quiet.
Thank you, Minus.
One that I don't think it serves anybody for us to kind of just. We'll wait until we have more of a solid answer on what we're going to do there, and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah. Or not.
Dibs.
Not a
Dibs.
Let's see. Silvado de Barber also asked if all races would be able to play together. So if they start at the same time, can you still quest and progress together from beginning to end?
You mean in light of like
as two different races?
Burials?
Yeah.
I'll say it this way: there are some options that we have that are on the table to assist with players at a low level to be able to travel across continents. However, we do not want to completely eliminate the travel barrier and make. I mean, that as soon as you do that, you instantly with the click, like when you click that checkbox, you instantly shrink the size of your game. You instantly shrink the size of the game world. And so that's something we have empathy towards, people who want to play together right from the beginning, but they're on totally other sides of the world. There's ways that we are going to experiment with alleviating and assisting that to a degree. But right now, the plan is not to eliminate that completely with some kind of, accessible, instant, travel or anything like that.
So I will do 2 more questions and then we'll start to move to wrap-ups.
Okay, Evoras X would like to know, has Nefeli been bugging Joppa and the team about adding mastery into crafting yet?
Nefel I would not say anything Nefel has done has been bugging me. He's been a great addition internally, just the internal chatter, and actually really enjoy reading his conversations that he has with the design team and his input. And honestly, I haven't had as much of a chance yet as I want to personally to kind of dig into some of the stuff. I get updates we've had meetings with him and Convo and Sacred. We do regular design meetings, and I've gotten some good, downloads on some of the high level picture of what's happening. But I'm really excited to get into some of the lower level stuff, especially when it comes to how crafting will interact with some of the other not immediately crafting related game systems like Mastery, Perception, things like that.
Okay, and one last question, correct?
Yep.
Okay, this is from Venexia00. Will there be any updates to the pledges? For example, being able to customize a pledge to pledge for a physical box and a cloth map, but maybe not alpha access, for example?
That's the direction that we want to go. Again, I mentioned it earlier on this stream as well, or in this podcast as well, is that we need to update the store to be able to do that kind of thing. But we have all sorts of plans on the kind of stuff that we can do, and yeah, we do want to be able to do custom stuff as well as a la carte items and things like that.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for answering those. We really appreciated it.
So I'm just going to throw one in there because it's something that we always have to ask. I think we asked this back in 2018 as well. Streamer program, any update?
And that's all the time we have tonight, folks. And thanks for coming.
Yeah, 2021.
Yeah. So I do feel a little bit bad about the streamer program per se, but what it is it's a list of streamers who are interested, and we have technically started the streamer program in that we've opened up streaming to certain streamers. If you're interested in doing a stream, we can't do just ad hoc streams yet. We want to work our way to that, and that's going to be coming, when we can, as soon as we can. I don't have a date for you, but if you do want to do streams like what Minus did or something like that, please come to me with the idea. Again, you can reach me at ben@visionaryrealms.com. Understand that if there's a ton of requests, obviously we won't be able to accommodate all of them. But yeah, if you have an interesting or cool idea for your stream, just let me know, and we'll see if we can make it happen.
There we have it. So
I just had a
go on.
Do you need to be a certain pledge tier to be able to do this, or is it just streamers that kind of come to you guys?
Yeah, for now. Yeah, for now. Obviously, you need, in order to get into the game, you need to have a VIP pledge. If you want to do a stream outside of the game, then that's fine too. But to actually have in-game access, you need a VIP pledge and above.
Okay. So we'll let you guys get ready. So 2021 VR. What are you looking forward to? What can the community expect? To see happen. If you guys can maybe touch on that, because we know obviously you guys are also pushing for time. So we'll do you guys first, and we really appreciate it. You guys coming on and being so open, because obviously we weren't scripted again as usual, and yeah. So 2021, and whatever you guys both want to say.
Oh gosh, what to say without without locking certain things in. There's a ton on the plate. We're meeting. Actually, we're meeting at the end of the year, but we're also meeting at the beginning of the year. Right now, we're focusing on putting in a bit more polish and final touches to that evaluation build that we spoke of, and that's being our completion for that is in January. But then, that's still pre-alpha testing. Will continue on through the early months anyway. We do plan. I'll let Chris talk more on the dev plans, but in terms of other things, we're hoping to get some of the website phases updated as well. That's on our list of want to dos. We just have to make sure that we're going to need the proper personnel for that, which of course requires the proper funding and resources. So that's but that's all what we're looking forward to there. What else are we doing? Continuing the streams, continuing these kinds of the regular monthly producers letters. Oh yeah, some of the feedback from the community too. We want to put kind of like a roadmap type thing on the website to give you kind of an idea of where we're at and where we're going next. Gosh, there's so many. I don't have a list in front of me, but there's tons of stuff like that you've offered feedback on. Yeah, it took me as kind of a surprise, so I'm sorry I wasn't prepared for that, but those are things off the top of my head.
I zoned out the last thing you were saying. Then did you mention anything about the roadmap?
Yeah. We want to put. I was just saying that we want to put a version of that on the website.
Yeah, that was a big one for me. I think you did a pretty good job with details. I'll give more of a big picture, which is just, like I said earlier about how 2020 ended up kind of becoming a year filled with more kind of detailed explanations of, how we're planning on doing different things and how we're planning on actually implementing different things, all while a massive amount of development work is going on in support of getting those things online. I think 2021 is going to be marked in large by seeing those things in action more and more in depth, more and more fully, everything from the perception system to climate acclimation, atmospheres and artifacts, the disposition system, kind of general, plans for combat and combat interaction, NPC interaction, things like that. 2021 is going to be all about seeing the game become fleshed out both in scope and in depth. I think this really, my sense in my gut is that this is really the year that people would say they've been waiting for in terms of the kind of things that they're excited to see. from our development and where we're going to be getting this year. And of course, that means exciting things in terms of lots of upcoming milestones. So leave it at that.
Awesome. There, people.
Great to hear.
Lots of beans.
Yeah, real quick, before this stream is over, I wanted to, as was advised by other people in this community, I wanted to. Everybody wanted me to give a moment where Joppa has time to give us one bean, and please mute Ben real quick and go, Joppa.
Cards are in.
One bean. We are right on the edge of getting the pyrophobic disposition fully working, which is going to include any fire-based abilities, firebolts, fireballs, being in a burning state, like if you have a fire-based dot on you, things like torches you hold in your hand, and the work that's had to be done on the NPC movement generators to support that. It also just happens to include things like knockbacks, pushes, pulls, fears, flees. It's really exciting. So all that stuff is I was actually just in and testing a lot of it today, and it needs just a little bit of tune-up, a little bit of polish, but we're talking like a day, of just tweaks, and you can expect to see some of that stuff coming in for next test. Good stuff.
It is cool.
Very nice, very nice.
So,
and one more thing, real quick. Since Ben put the kibosh on the Bard hype, I heard through my channels that the reason that Bards might have got pushed back a little bit is because Necro took the lead, and it is there any truth to that?
Man, you make my life so hard sometimes, Nathan. So we're gonna have people saying, "Oh, so the Necro's coming." What about that? And then I'm gonna have to, write a whole producer's letter on how that was misconstrued because of Nathan.
That's just part of the role.
So we'll quickly do a quick round. The final words, and then we'll basically end it. I'm pushing through the Basgrim minus plate and Nathan information and little video feed. So we'll start off with Lex. Lex, your final words. 2021, what's going on? Go.
Been an interesting year. Everything here has been pretty much hammered home time and time again. There's not a whole lot left for me to say. So I'll leave it at this with the VoT shutting its doors. It's been real, and worst case scenario, I will see everybody in the game.
Awesome. Baz?
Yeah, well, again, it's always a pleasure being on this show. Thank you again. This show did not disappoint at all. Like I said, this type of thing is always my favorite, and I'm actually pleasantly surprised at the amount of info that we got out of, especially props to you, Nate, for actually effectively extracting a bean from Joppa on the spot like that. Obviously, yeah, it's been an interesting year. Really excited to see what comes up this year, and really the only thing from me, I think, as you had mentioned earlier, self promo and kind of what I have coming soon. Really, the only thing that I can mention that I have in my plans that I can talk about right now is the video that I have coming out on Monday, which I promoted on my social media recently. That actually has very much to do with what the devs were just talking about with the timeline that they're going to be releasing, which I'm glad to hear that that it's the plan to be kind of on the website front and center, because I feel like actually a lot more has been said about the timeline and the kind of the road to alpha, more so than people realize. So basically what this video is kind of wrapping up 2020 and looking ahead to 2021, much like we were doing today, and kind of talking about what the actual order of events is going to be leading up to alpha. So again, glad that it'll be kind of on the website for everyone to see. But until then, I am going to be kind of doing my own compilation for that.
Cool. Blake?
Yeah, so many of you may know that I am also run a stream for VoT called Fully Geared, and now I am faced with the decision that they're shutting their doors, which I just want to say I'm so thankful for you guys for taking me under and really allowing the VoT network to blossom, and I can't wait for you guys to return. Hopefully it's sooner than later, but yeah, I just want to thank you for that. But also I want to, which is a good segue in saying that I plan on doing other things outside of Pantheon and outside of VoT. So with that said, I want to go ahead and say that I am too have big plans in 2021 for doing my own streams on my own channel. You can find me at the socials on the screen there. But yeah, I still think that Pantheon is my #1 game. I love it. I fell in love with it back in 2015, I think it was, when I first started watching it. And I will continue to keep pushing out content and really getting in depth with what I can cover and whatnot. And I do want to take the opportunity to join the streamer program. So stay tuned on that and becoming a VIP. So yeah, thank you guys.
Cool. Josh?
Yeah, I think that 21 is going to be hopefully a big step forward for Pantheon, and I'm going to look forward to seeing it from the outside and just watching from the outside, and yeah, hopefully things just go from strength to strength in that regard.
Cool. Minus?
Yeah, honestly, the big thing is I don't want to talk about myself here. Pantheon Plus is not Minus. It's a group of amazing people who've helped me. You guys don't really know a guy named Poiru very well unless you're part of the community. He's really done so much. He's been my right-hand man. He's helped us put together the website. He's built it from absolute scratch. The back-end databases, everything that helps us pull all the content creators together in one place to find them. He is an unsung hero, and he's not much of a front and camera guy, but he's absolutely amazing. And I couldn't do any of this without him. And furthermore, if it wasn't for Theric and Drac to have my back, to support me when I'm high, when I'm low, and really help create community. These guys are absolutely amazing. Pantheon Plus is a lot more than one person behind a camera. It's a team and it's a community. And I want to thank everyone who's part of our community who makes that happen. Everybody who's part of our guild that came out of nowhere. And all the opportunities that the community has helped us generate to get opportunities to interview developers and Joppa and to put out PA5 type content. And Ben, I promise you that in 2021, we will be more annoying than ever and trying to get access and exclusives and get the word out there about Pantheon.
I look forward to it.
And I just, again, to me, like I said, please understand, Pantheon Plus is not the Minus show. I've said that for a long time. I don't ever want it to be that. It's about community. It's about all these wonderful people here. It's about a place for us all to be together and excited for Pantheon. And I'm excited what 2021 will bring.
Cool. Booch?
Well, to make a broad generalization, I'd like to say just tonight, looking back at what we saw, the streams of the year, from a player's perspective, with a little foresight, even though most of these streams gave you a broad look at not fully developed systems. The Sleepless Zone was awesome. The perception system, the climate system, the abilities, the mastery system, the spell book reveal there. From a player's perspective, if you look at the overall scope of the game, what they've made, I think it's going to be potentially awesome and exactly what all of us are looking for. So to Joppa, Mikhail, and the rest of the VR team, I think you're doing a hell of a job. Good job so far. Good luck in 2021 and Semper Fi.
Nice. Evoras?
Thanks, man.
For me, looking back at 2020, I'd say I think things turned a corner in October, I think, with the producer's letter and the start of PA5. And I think looking forward to 2021, I think we're going to see more, and I think we're going to see better. And I think there will be more to stream, and the community will be doing far better. And I hope to help in any way I can to sort of get the community going. I have no intention of streaming unless I can sneak onto a PA5 stream with Minus as a guest or something wacky like that. I'm sure if he needs an enchanter, I can be there. Otherwise, I think things are going to get better, and hopefully see you guys round in another pre-alpha or even alpha sometime soon.
Nice. Nathan?
Yeah, 2021. First of all, I just want to thank Visionary Realms so much for all of your guys' hard work and for making a lot of difficult and hard decisions to make this the game that so many of us have wanted for so long. Just know that you are all loved and appreciated, and you're the true heroes of the MMO genre. So thank you guys so much. And as far as my channel in 2021, of course, I'm going to keep focusing on Pantheon and content related to Pantheon development. Ben did promise me a stream in the future. I'm going to hold off the pressure until Paladin's ready to show off. One more thing, I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about a little secret project. I've been working on a full Choose Your Own Adventure D&D campaign with puppets. It's going to have a lot of Pantheon Easter eggs, and of course as well. And I've already made over 60 props for it, so it's a biggest project I've ever done.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah,
Cool, dude.
actually, my basement is now this really weird dungeon environment.
Hey, don't say that on live television, dude.
An MMO dungeon. Sorry about that. So I'm super excited about that, and it's something I think is going to be a lot of fun. So yep, that's all I got.
Awesome. Shy?
All I want to say is that I will see you all eventually in Pantheon. Just look for Shyana under the VoT guild tag.
Awesome. Yep, and I want to thank the community, VR. I want to especially thank Alexa and Josh putting up with me for 5 years. Doing this. It is sad, but we're not completely gone. Real life, like we mentioned at the beginning, real life has forced us into this break, but we definitely will be back. And we can't thank everybody enough. Basgrim, Minus, Booch, Plate, Evoras, Nathan. We've been here time and again. VR, Ben, Chris. We've had our engagements time and again, and I'm pretty sure we'll have some. In the future when we get back. And thank you everybody, honest to God, and good luck VR, and on the endeavors 2021. You basically put it out there. 2021 is going to be busy, and we're all looking forward to it, I think. So yeah, thanks everybody.
Yeah, thanks for everything that you've done with this show. All of you guys at VoT. You guys were one of the early adopters, and you've done a lot for us and for the community. So just wanted to send you Visionary Realms thanks as well.
Awesome.
We'll miss you, but don't be a stranger.
Definitely won't be. We're still there. We'll be in the background though. But we're still there. Yep. So that wraps it up, everybody. Thank you for joining us in VR. Thanks for being so open and chitty chatty with all of us. Baz, again, a pleasure. Play, it was awesome having you here. Minus, again, a pleasure having you on. Booch, the same. Evoras, Nathan, Shy as well. I want to thank you as well for putting up with us for the years. And have a great night and a great weekend, everybody. And take care.
You all.
And remember, don't look for me, because you won't find me.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all.
See y'all. Adios.
Love you guys.
Yeah.
Now I'm muted.